Well, let's get going.
Retro Raw.
What are we waiting for?
Worst opening ever.
It really is. For anything.
No way. I've had way worse openings than that one.
Retro Raw number 262, June 1st, 1998. So this is the night after Over the Edge with Dude Love versus Steve Austin. How many times have we talked about the night after a horrible WCW pay-per-view or pay-per-view? There'll be a horrible recap where they show still shots and we really have no idea what's going on.
Sure.
This made things very crystal clear about what happened. Even better, it was narrated by Vince McMahon, so you got his slant on how things went.
And was it ever a slant?
I wish I had written this all down. It was very long. Steve Austin's title win was tainted, a shallow victory. An injury suffered by Vince at the incompetent hands of Dude Love had given Austin the title, made Austin the least deserving champion of all time. It was a masterpiece, this video package.
And he said it with such passion.
There's a lot of vigor in his voice.
Disgust.
He was so passionate about how Steve Austin was the most undeserving champion ever.
Yes. So the show opens, and Mick Foley is in the ring. Not Dude Love. Mick Foley's in the ring with a chair.
Now, before we get into what Mick Foley says here, I gotta say something about this show and the Attitude Era in general. Foley's in the ring. His face is all fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
Now, in 2017, guys have violent matches, and they show up on Raw the next night, and they've got makeup on their face because they've been in such a brutal war the night before. This was not makeup. This dude's swollen. Got a big, giant, swollen knot right underneath his eye.
Yeah.
Right above his cheek. And there's Vince McMahon, comes out later. His head's all fucked up. He's got a big gash on his head. He got smashed. He had a still shot of Vince McMahon being waffled with his chair.
In the face.
In the face, like right smack dab, right on his frontal lobe.
Lance tweeted the picture.
Yes.
And Jimmy Corderas replied, yeah, I had to pick up his teeth and give them back to him.
Yep. The caps of his teeth flew off in the middle of this match. So anyway, the point is, they both got smashed in the face with chairs. Now, Vince largely seemed none the worse for wear, except for losing his teeth. Mick Foley on this show, and granted, this was one of, like, I'm sure a million chair shots he took. Mick Foley struggled to get through an interview, and he's a great interview guy. He was not having his best night here on the mic. And then, come the main event, The Undertaker is in the middle of the ring on live national television screaming at Mick Foley to get in the right spot.
Yeah, it happened.
Because Mick didn't know where he was supposed to be at the time. All over television the next day. I guaranteed this guy had a concussion. It's the 90s. No one gave a shit about anybody. Which, by the way, as we'll lead to here, we open up with a fucking brawl outside where it's DOA and the Legion of Doom and weapons.
You skipped that entire Vince dude promo.
Well, we'll get to it. But my point is, nobody gave a shit about anybody here in this era.
No. That's abundantly clear. So Foley says, last night he had lost his teeth, lost the match. Steve Austin had kicked his ass. He had been listening to the wrong people. He had an apology to make and called out Mr. McMahon. So Vince comes out. Foley says, I apologize for letting you down. The dude's going to be out of action for a while, but I hope I'll still be the #1 contender when I return. Vince could not believe his ears. Called him a miserable failure as a superstar and a human being. Ordered Foley to get down on his knees and apologize. Foley refused to let Vince embarrass him on national television. Ironically, here in 2017, he had no problem letting Stephanie do that for months. So Vince said Foley's already an embarrassment to everyone, including his family. Foley says, you know, hitting you with a chair wasn't an accident, but it felt pretty damn good. So Vince dares Foley to try it again. And Foley picks up the chair and he's rearing back to swing. And Vince says, you can forget about your kids' college educations and that 20-year mortgage you just bought. Foley realizes Vince is right, pushes the chair down, sits in it, hangs his head.
You know what was so great about it, though, is Vince McMahon didn't pretend that Mick Foley would be, like, that he was poor.
Destitute.
He claimed that Mick Foley had spent a lot of money and the money would eventually run out.
Yeah.
Not to mention
that's a big difference in what they do nowadays.
Not to mention it was a 20-year mortgage, not a 30 like the most of us chumps get.
It's true.
It's also true. So he determined, he said, I have not fired Steve Austin because Steve Austin makes me richer, but you just make me sick. And he told Foley his services were no longer required. Now, my only question is, since he was fired anyway, why didn't Foley hit him with a chair then? But he didn't.
Well, he was hoping that maybe he would be rehired when Vince cooled off.
I guess so.
Which happened, by the way.
It did. Dude Loves Music played, and it just occurred to me, this episode of the Brian and Vinny and Craig show is going to start with dancing and end with dancing. Here it was Vince McMahon dancing to Dude Loves Music in his face, mocking him. It was great. This was a very good segment.
That was awesome.
Well, Kevin Kelly interviewed at Darren Drozdov. This was not awesome.
No.
He puked
Once again, where the hell did Droz come from?
NFL.
Well, last week I told you, or whatever
I know
it was,
that he came from the back, you jackass.
this week he started in the back.
I know that he's from the NFL, but how many weeks have we been watching Edge vignettes? How many
true.
weeks did we watch Val Venus vignettes?
That's fair.
Dozens.
This dude just showed up last week.
Yes.
Hey, it's Droz. He barfs. What?
He's right. Brian's leaving out no details.
I'm leaving out zero details.
He's skipping over nothing. So Droz yaks on Kevin Kelly a couple times. He cuts a very strange promo where he cannot look at the camera, but he can't look Kelly in the eye either. Maybe embarrassed because he had to throw up on him. The Road Warriors show up. They think it's funny. And then the DOA jumps them. And we had LOD 2000 and Droz versus DOA in a street fight in an actual street.
That wasn't really a street.
It was a loading dock.
It was a loading dock.
Loading ramp or something.
They got this loading dock, and at the top, you see all these cop cars with their lights on.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in case violence breaks out.
Don't want any trouble here at
Here
this
in this
wrestling
fight.
show.
It's a Chicago street fight on the street. The Legion of Doom has painted their faces for the street fight.
Yes.
Right.
Sunny's out there in her outfit. Mm-hmm. She's in her Legion of Doom skirt and top. It's preposterous. And then the best part is, before the match, they're being interviewed. This is when Droz is vomiting. And Sunny's got to get her shit in.
Yes.
What is that? Well, she's got to say, what a rush. So the guys talk too long. And as they're still talking, Legion of Doom starts riding their giant fucking motorcycles down the ramp towards the Legion of Doom.
Or DOA.
DOA. What did I say? Legion of Doom?
Yeah,
DOA.
It's okay.
So loud, Sunny has to pretend that she doesn't hear them.
Right.
Until she gets her line in. And then she goes, oh my God. They're like a foot from her.
On a big giant motorcycle.
She didn't notice them until that point because she had to get her big line in.
So they're all in this street fight. There's weapons galore everywhere, and that's all they do. It's 5 minutes of dudes hitting each other with weapons. Often in the head.
Horrible.
Taking bumps in the trash and the puke.
Sickening.
At least the puke is soft.
It's true.
All I could think doing this, besides this is horrible, is imagine you are Darren Drozdov. You've had one match on TV. I don't know how many before that, not many. And now you're putting here with all this weaponry and get through this without hurting yourself or somebody else. I guess he did, but Jesus, what a stupid idea. So they have a terrible brawl for a long time. I'm sure they all got legit beat up. And then at the top of the ramp, there's a shadow. Now, it's the Undertaker, but he's wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt.
Right.
All in black.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's not gloss over this. The Undertaker seriously looks like Giant Midian.
Yeah.
He's got his hair down.
Went to Kmart or something.
He's wearing a black sweatshirt, and not even like a nice one.
No.
A very low-rent black sweatshirt.
He looked like tall McFoley.
He's wearing a giant pair of sweatpants because they're too big for the Undertaker, which I can't even
Think about that,
imagine
yes.
where he got these. And then they're tucked into combat boots. And his shirt, by the way, is tucked into his sweatpants.
You know, I was aware looking at it how absurd it was, but now that you've really described it, it really sinks in.
I could not believe my eyes. Like, they had an idea, which is we're going to humanize the Undertaker, and he's going to cut a shoot promo.
Oh, yeah.
This died the death of all deaths. Like,
And we're having the Undertaker.
How did this get from Vince Russo through Jim Cornette and Pat Patterson and through Vince McMahon? Not to mention, the Undertaker didn't say, I ain't doing this shit. This is stupid. Nope. He showed up in this outfit and he looked like a giant geek. And I've never said that before about the Undertaker in my whole life.
Yeah.
He was a giant dead geek.
One thing between his sweatpants and Mick Foley's sweatpants, I don't know if you noticed. This is the second time in less than a month Foley's sweatpants had a hole
That's right. He had a hole in the ass.
Huh. I didn't notice that.
I noticed at the very end. It was actually apropos because he gets chastised by Vince, and he gets fired. And they show a shot of him from behind in a chair with his head hanging low and a giant hole in his pants, and his tidy whities are shining through. It's like, man, this man's been humiliated in every possible way now.
So Sweatpants Undertaker walks through. He starts punching people left and right. The highlight of this is they're on a loading ramp, like I said. So he grabs chains and throws them into some kind of cart.
Yeah.
It's just over on the side. And I don't know if this is their plan.
I'm sure it wasn't.
But suddenly, the cart, which had been in place, gets free. And now Chains is riding this cart down the ramp right at the cameraman, who has to run backwards for his life.
Yeah, this cameraman's running backwards.
Through all this plunder.
So he's got
legions of doom everywhere.
Somehow, he's got to not trip over anything while he's running backwards so he doesn't get smashed and killed by a giant fucking cart with a DOA in it.
Yeah.
Nobody gave a shit about anybody during this war.
No. All wrestlers were, in fact, collateral damage. So, Taker beats up everyone, or really like two or three guys, and he walks through, and he goes to commercial. So, we get no finish to a street fight, which is ordinarily...
Correct.
Ordinarily, that's the kind of thing that sends me into a rage. This street fight was so shitty, I don't care. Just end it. Just stop fighting in the street. So, Taker demands to see Vince. We get Val Venis versus Poppy Chulo.
As Michael Cole informed us, it means pimp daddy.
And he didn't sound cool saying it.
At least Michael Cole got one thing right.
So,
what I love about this Val Venis, and I gotta mention this, I will not allow any of you to talk about this. Val Venis put him in a camel clutch.
I didn't like that.
And made him humble.
Yes, he
I
did.
bet Poppy Chulo didn't like it either.
I swear to God that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
No,
put him
you're
in a
not
camel
wrong.
clutch and began to hump his back.
He did a hip swivel. This was gayer than anything Goldust ever did.
Oh, yeah.
You know what's amazing about it, too, is he's got a good physique, but if you did like a poll of the
got one of those, too.
hottest guys in WWE, I mean, he wouldn't have been at the top of the list. But he does his hip swivel, and the fucking chicks go crazy. Like, they go crazy for this guy.
It's true.
His gimmick is he's a porn star.
Yeah. Maybe that's why.
I guess.
Women had a
I never knew that they had such a
nastier
thing
side. Yeah.
for these porn fellers.
His balls also show ready.
I'm sure they were. It's his livelihood in his case. So, Val worked in Mexico for years. So these guys worked well together.
By the way, he did his promo before the match, and he was ensuring us that he wasn't shooting blanks.
Right.
He goes, it is not a gun in my pocket. I'm just happy to see you. And I'm not shooting blanks. Mm-hmm. I'm like, so you're seducing the ladies with the hopes of pregnancy.
I guess
Is that what's going on here?
That's what it sounded like.
Huh.
Yeah, that was not his best line.
No. It was clever, but it was ridiculous.
Match went a little longer than it needed to.
Ridiculous.
Not one person thought Poppy Chulo would win.
Craig laughed.
He did not, and Val won with the top. Well, Craig did laugh. Poppy Chulo did not win, and Val won with the top rope splash.
The money shot.
That's what they call it.
Just want to make sure we got that out there.
That's what they call it. That's not what he calls it.
What does he call it?
I don't know.
That's what he calls it.
I'm just kidding. That's what they say on WWE all the time now. She calls it the rear view.
I see.
But that's the name of the move, I think.
Okay.
I've determined. They've never not said that.
No.
It's a splash.
Taker cut a promo in the ring. This was... It was good, and it had a point, and I understood it, but boy, was this a Vince Russo promo. Try to explain why he was pissed off at Vince McMahon.
Undertaker talked about ratings.
Yes.
The Undertaker did a soliloquy about ratings. This was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
You don't think the Undertaker scours the internet to see what his segment drew?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, he began by saying 10 years ago Vince had given him an opportunity.
He is ironically the ratings king.
Makes sense.
He was in the highest rated segment ever
Yeah.
in WWE history.
Vince had exploited Taker's loyalty by having him fight all the giants and freaks in the world to keep them away from Vince's hand-picked champions. keeping the kingdom safe. And yes, Taker had gotten brief chances here and there. He's a 2-time world champion. But those reigns had not lasted long because Vince didn't want Taker representing the company. Taker stayed loyal. He stayed with the company even when everyone else left for more money. Now, I know that's true. But do you need to paint yourself as a second-rate promotion right there?
They can't help themselves.
Nope.
Well, he didn't just bury them. He buried Shawn Michaels here, too. He never lost his smile, he said.
He said that, too. Yeah. Then Vince had forced Taker to fight his own brother. Gave Paul Bearer a platform to air the family's dirty laundry, and he did it all for ratings. But Taker had not lost his smile. He kept fighting. He had no problem with Steve Austin. He was done being mistreated by Vince. He deserved what was rightfully his. He demanded a title shot. He called Vince out. So Vince walks right up to him, yanks the mic out of his hands. He is appalled Taker had chokeslammed him last week and stood over him like a vulture at the pay-per-view. Said, yes, Taker, you have been loyal for years, but what have you done for me lately? And is Paul Bearer telling the truth when he said your mother's a whore? This pissed Undertaker off.
I love that the Vince McMahon character knew that he had something that would keep Undertaker from killing him, so he took the opportunity to just be an asshole for no good reason.
Yeah.
That's what happened here.
Exactly.
There was no reason to ask him if his mother was a whore.
Well, there is. He wants the Undertaker as mean and angry and pissed off as possible.
So he can kill Kane?
So he can kill... Well, so the meanest, angriest guy possible can kill Austin.
I see.
He's loading up the deck.
He was thrilled at the end of the show that Kane won. He seemed more in Kane's corner than The Undertaker.
He didn't have a plan with Kane, but he may have had plan B with Taker as well. Point is, he was not putting all his eggs in one basket. He wants anyone to beat Austin. Anyone. So eventually, he did in fact book Taker versus Kane in a top contenders match tonight. And all I can say is this was such a Vince Russo promo. I'm stunned Vince didn't call him Mark.
No, I'm sure that's coming. But we already have a Mark. Mark Mero.
That's true. Sorry, Undertaker, you can't be Mark now. This guy is.
So, by the way, to recap, at the pay-per-view, it was supposed to be Sable bringing in a wrestler who was going to face Mark Mero. And if that person could beat Mark Mero, I guess she was free of her contract or whatever. And if he won, then she had to leave the company.
Yeah.
So, she just showed up with no wrestler and said she was going to do the match herself. And then he acted like he was all sad and apologetic, and he let her climb on top, but then reversed it and pinned her. So now she's out of WWE forever.
Sable was fired, everyone.
Yeah, Sable was fired from this company. I thought she lasted longer. It's funny.
I seem to recall
Could have
more.
sworn she was around for a while, but she got fired.
It was funny because they fired her on Sunday, and then there was a Super Soaker commercial she was doing a photo shoot for here in this show.
You know, I hadn't put those two together, but you're right.
Well, you know, clearly that was taped in advance before the firing.
Sure.
I think.
The payoff to this commercial, by the way, was DX dousing a cameraman with the Super Soakers, and he screamed in agony.
I didn't think that was a payoff, but duly noted.
They showed Sable
Well, she was also wet. Yeah. That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
So we had Steve Blackman versus Mark Mero in a King of the Ring qualifier.
Oh, boy.
They went through all the stuff with Sable at the pay-per-view, and then Mero brought out his new woman, Jacqueline.
No. As it was pronounced, Jacqueline.
There's a Q in there.
Just got to make that clear.
That is how he said it.
She's Jacqueline.
So she came out shaking her giant fake bosoms everywhere.
And she did. All the way down the ramp.
There's no hyperbole
She
here.
just jiggled those babies back and forth.
Really wasn't that much jiggling. Just shook them.
I guess there wasn't much jiggling.
No. So Steve Blackman was a much better pro wrestler than I remembered.
He was a lot better than Ernest Miller. I can tell you that
Yeah,
much.
that's true.
As far as...
He just had zero personality. So they did this match. He took the whole thing, and then Jackie took the ref, and Mero hit a low blow, a Samoan drop, and a shooting star press. And he jumped high in the air for the shooting star press, and he flipped over, and he came down, and he landed so hard on his knees.
Yeah, because this fucking ring is not built for shooting star presses.
Neither
or
are
anything.
250-pound men.
Yeah, Mark Mero's a big man to do a shooting star press.
Yeah. And it looked great, but I bet it sucked. They showed Austin in studio making an appearance.
No mention of the handful of acid he grabbed when he was celebrating afterwards. Even Jim Ross couldn't even believe his eyes.
He did get both buttocks in there. Yeah.
In one hand.
So Austin made the appearance on Man Cow's radio show in Chicago.
Man Cow.
I don't know if he's still a thing or not.
I think he still has a show.
Yeah. Vince called in and they went back and forth for a while. It was funny.
Vince was just listening to the radio.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Randomly.
Thought, man, I'll call Man Cow.
The morning after a pay-per-view.
I keep getting a damn busy signal.
On 4 hours
I'll
of
keep
sleep.
trying.
Yep.
I'm not going to give up, God damn it.
As you mentioned, we are still getting Edge vignettes. He says, I am lightness, I am darkness, I am both.
What was his...
I don't think that works.
So he's Aleister Black, I guess.
What was his character supposed to be?
An urchin.
The best I can give you, the cleanest, best dressed, prettiest street urchin you ever saw.
Okay.
He's angry at everyone and lashing out violently at random.
So basically every character from the 90s.
Making out with random chicks in alleys.
He'll flash you his beautiful smile and then shiv you?
I guess.
Okay.
It's the best I could do.
It's a cool gimmick.
Let's see. Triple H and the New Age Outlaws versus D'Lo Brown, The Rock, and Owen Hart. This was awesome and not in a good way.
God. So every time, not so much nowadays, but back in the day, you could always count on Survivor Series being a bunch of dudes getting pinned in 2 minutes with moves they would never get pinned with in real life.
Sure.
This was an elimination match. Hunter, Billy Gunn, and the Road Dogg versus Rocky Maivia, Owen Hart, and D'Lo Brown. And then Sarge came out and he sent X-Pac and China to the back.
Right.
And the rest of the nation.
So, like, guys are getting pinned a minute in.
Oh, yeah.
Billy pins D'Lo with a pile driver in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Rock pins Road Dogg with a rock bottom immediately.
Yeah.
Owen pins Billy after Billy bonks into the post and Owen does his kick.
When has Owen ever pinned anyone with that kick?
He has before.
Has
after he'd killed Shawn Michaels. I think he started hitting that move and pinning people here.
That's true.
I see. Okay.
So then it's Hunter all by himself, and out walks China.
Remember, she had just been sent to the back.
Had she not been sent to the back?
Yeah.
Is there like, well, you guys got to go back for like 3 minutes. And then it's okay.
Then you can come back.
Then you can come back. She just comes back out.
Yeah. So after 3 guys are pinned in 3 or 4 minutes, Hunter against 2 men fights valiantly for 20. Isn't it amazing how that works?
Of course it is.
Isn't just stunning.
And shockingly, he pins The Rock.
He pins The Rock.
Rock's out of here.
With a pedigree. So now it's Hunter and Owen, and very quickly Shamrock runs in and attacks Owen for the DQ.
I was so
Stupid.
angry. I was so angry. Listen, if this had been like a 6-man and they just didn't want to beat anybody because it's a hot feud and you do a DQ, that still sucks. But they pinned 4 fucking guys.
Yeah.
And you couldn't pin one more guy and give me a finish. You had to have Ken fucking Shamrock run in to attack Owen Hart. Like, clearly we're going to a Ken Shamrock Owen Hart feud, right?
Sure.
So Owen Hart couldn't do a job here as a result of Shamrock doing something, or won and then he got beat up?
We had to have 4 men pinned and still have a non-finish.
In 7 minutes.
That's really astonishing.
I was fuming.
So the nation attacks Shamrock. Dan Severn comes out and attacks them. And Severn and Shamrock, who of course have had their issues in another promotion, they had to stare down and Beast left as the fans chanted UFC.
And then Hunter...
That was surreal.
Hunter doesn't always make good decisions.
No.
He went after Ken Shamrock and he got his ass handed to him.
He did. He was a babyface here.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
By the way, next up is Jeff Jarrett with Southern Justice against Farouk, the repackaged hog farmers. In another angle, I've totally forgotten because it's so forgettable. They were going to put Southern Justice with DX.
What?
That was the plan. DX were going to be heels and Southern Justice would be their bodyguards.
Be their heavies.
But they got over as baby faces. And so Southern Justice ended up with Jeff Jarrett.
That's one of the worst ideas I've ever heard.
Do you watch this show? There's a lot of bad ideas.
Yes, Brian. Midian watching the DX's back is a terrible idea.
Including, as we'll talk about later, Mark Henry versus Terry Funk.
Yeah. They did so here. Vince McMahon meeting with Paul Bearer and Kane backstage, and Vince smiled and shook Kane's hand. So Farouk versus Double J in a King of the Ring qualifier. Was this the period? Well, obviously it was. Ric Flair was in legal limbo.
Yes.
Fans were chanting, "We want Flair."
Yes.
Because we did not want Farouk and Double J. That's for sure.
No.
Farouk beat him up for 3 minutes. He got hit with a belt buckle. He got pinned.
Sucked. King of the Ring qualifier.
Why do they put so much into this guy's entrance and then don't They don't book him properly.
Jared?
Yes.
They don't know what they're doing. They know what they're doing with one guy.
You could have stopped with, why do they put so much into his entrance?
That's fair.
It is channel-changing heat when he comes out. And people look back at this era and they use the term X-Pac heat. No. Double J heat. Like, Double J is, I don't want to watch this show. Let me see what's on Nitro immediately. Had a video package devoted to the generous McMahon family and all the amazing and beneficial charity work they did. These are so awesome. All of them. Taka Michinoku versus Shofunaki. So remember last week, there's about 85 references to the Godzilla movie?
Yes.
It came out, and now they are openly burying it. I laughed. So there's 2 Japanese wrestlers there, so they had a crew of Japanese photographers. And then I could not believe my eyes.
Yes.
Al Snow and Head are out there in the most offensively stereotypical Japanese disguises possible. Big giant glasses, buck teeth, those flat hats, whatever they're called. The actual Japanese photographers thought this was funny and posed for a picture with Head. And then he was taken away, and Taka won with the Michinoku driver in a match nobody was paying attention to.
Has there ever been the Japanese photographers out for a Kaientai match before today?
I don't think so.
Can you imagine? And this Al Snow thing was so atrocious. And then, of course, it's WWE. He gets arrested right as they're going for the finish. So nobody's paying any attention to the end of the match. This was hideous. Then Bradshaw gets in the ring to celebrate with Taka. And I cannot believe my eyes. What?
Well, they wanted to make sure that no one at home cared about the little people.
So idiotic.
Where's the biggest Texan we have? Bradshaw, get in the ring.
I'm still shocked that Taka still works today.
I'm so shocked that...
Paul Bearer did a backstage promo.
Brian is rubbing his temples.
He promised Kane would beat Taker and would soon be WWF champion. Al Snow, still in the Japanese costume, cut a promo on Head in the parking lot, made jokes about Egg Foo Young. Not Japanese. Mark Henry versus Terry Funk in a King of the Ring qualifier.
Mark Henry faced Terry Funk in a King of the Ring qualifier.
Yeah.
Funk tries to kill this guy with a chair shot. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2. Funk decides, I'm going to do an acai moonsault because my opponent is the world's strongest man.
Right.
Okay. Now on paper, like if you're going to do a moonsault at 53 years old, the world's strongest man sounds like the perfect guy to catch you.
In theory, yes.
Unfortunately, the world's strongest man was the world's greenest wrestler.
Yes.
Even more so than Goldberg. He fucking misses. Funk hits his thigh on the guardrail. Then, because he hit his thigh, he has nowhere to go but straight down on his head.
Yes.
I thought he was dead. Then, they throw him back in the ring, and here's the finish. Mark Henry hits 10 moves and then pins him. Am I missing anything?
A little bit.
What?
You're missing, hits a move, makes a cover, Funk kicks out, hits a move, makes a cover, Funk kicks out 5 times, and then he hits a powerbomb and a splash and wins.
So I was just out by 3 moves. Is
You
that what
missed,
you're telling
you missed
me?
a bunch of kickouts. That made it even worse.
I see.
I know Jim Ross referred to Terry Funk as middle-aged and crazy, but why didn't he try this acai in the rampway? Off the ropes?
Because he's middle-aged and crazy.
This was poor planning on Mr. Funk's part.
This is a poor match. So now Vince and Austin were out there doing commentary together. Taker and Kane in the main event had a very good mean guy match. All punching and clobbering and slamming and crashing.
You know, I'd like to mention one thing, by the way. If you watch that Terry Funk match, and Vince McMahon's out here doing commentary, Terry Funk is 1 year older than Vince McMahon.
Yes.
He looked easily 15 years older.
Hell yeah.
Man.
Terry Funk's life has in fact been more difficult and harder than Vince McMahon's.
Don't get blown up a lot.
Wrestling is hard on people.
Yes. So Taker hits a massive chokeslam, but King gets right to his feet. Vince makes it clear he does not care who wins. He just wants the best man possible to win to beat Austin. Ref gets bumped. Taker hits a tombstone. outruns Mick Foley, now in the Mankind mask. He attacks Taker, puts him in the mandible claw. Vince says, I fired Foley. I don't know what he's doing here, but he's gleeful. So Taker fights on. Here's the part where he had to yell at Mankind to come distract him. Eventually Mankind did. And then Kane grabbed Taker, hit a tombstone, and won. Which was probably Taker's first pinfall loss since, I guess, Brett beat him last summer. So Kane wins. Vince smiles, mocks Austin. Kane and Austin have a stare down. Then Kane leaves. Taker recovers, starts brawling with Mankind. And Vince says, Foley is showing intestinal fortitude and guts here. He no longer deserves to be fired. And they're still brawling as the show ended. It was a very good main event to set up the two main events at the pay-per-view.
Not a bad show. Not a bad show.
Had some bad points. But
now, this does lead us to Nitro. Did not sell out.
All right. Retro Raw number 263, June 8th, 1998. Show opened with a memorial video for the Junkyard Dog. That was nice. Then Vince...
Nice, he died.
Well, it sucks that he's died, but it was a nice thing to do.
It was a nice graphic.
Vince McMahon and the Stooges came out in full tuxedos. Announcers had no idea what was going on, but they were sure it must be important to see these men dressed this fancy. Vince thanked the fans for making last night's Raw the most watched wrestling program in history. And said this would be a night of thanks. He was very low-key. He was not Mr. McMahon here. He was Vinnie Mac.
But that's what made it so great.
It is.
He was trying to be just the nice, friendly promoter.
Yes.
But he did all of his usual Vince stuff. Like he always starts with, "May I have your attention, please?"
Yes.
Instant heat. And he's talking about how we're going to see the real Vince McMahon tonight.
He says, I stand before you humble and generous.
Everybody laughed. And then, of course, here was the most amazing thing about this. He announces he's getting the Humanitarian of the Year award tonight. We're all invited. And then, like, completely at random, this was such a Vince Russo show.
Yes.
This was such a Vince Russo show. Vince says, I am also going to invite Stone Cold Steve Austin to join us tonight.
Why would you do that?
And I'm like, you're just a goddamn idiot. Like, you're a complete idiot. Why are you inviting Stone Cold Steve Austin to this? You know you're going to get stunned.
Well, the answer is it was a trap.
Well, it sure didn't work out very well. I don't even know what the trap was, having seen the show, and it just ended 2 seconds ago.
Okay. So that was the opening thing. Yes, this was a Vince Russo show, mainly in that there was 3 hours of stuff in a 2-hour show. And often there was more than one thing going on.
I remember the trap now that I think about it. It was a trap. Yeah. But still, he was taking a big risk with this trap.
He was, yeah.
He invited a guy out who every time he set a trap, stunned him and left him for dead.
Yes. Over and over again.
I guess it fits because the definition of insanity and Vince McMahon is insane.
Yes.
Okay, it makes sense now.
Godfather versus Ken Shamrock in a King of the Ring qualifier. First time he was the Godfather and not Kama.
Not a very good match here.
Shamrock can move. This is what I noticed about this show is there's guys.
So could Hoovy.
Well, Hoovy could too.
Sometimes he had bad matches.
Yes. Well, speaking of guys who could move and have bad matches, Billy Gunn on this show was moving.
Yeah.
That dude could run the ropes.
To reiterate, they called him the Godfather of the Nation. He wasn't the full-fledged Godfather yet.
No.
He didn't
have any hose.
Right. He came out smoking a cigar and wearing a derby, but other than that.
Even that was subdued.
Yeah.
It's not like it was a feather in the hat or anything.
Right.
Yeah. So Shamrock won with the ankle lock out of nowhere in a 2-minute, great finish to a 2-minute Raw match. He caught Godfather as he was running the ropes. It was really cool. So the Nation goes after Shamrock afterwards. Dan Severn makes a save. And that was that. Shamrock could sell an ankle.
This show is so bizarre. You've got DX and Vince McMahon and Steve Austin and an old Legion of Doom and these fucking bikers that just won't go away and a UFC fighter and then another UFC fighter who happens to be Dan Severn. It's just bizarre. Mark Mero and Jeff Jarrett as a team. Farouk and Steve Blackman as a team.
Yeah. They were, well, we'll get to that.
Areolas.
That was mentioned, yeah. Clips from Madison Square Garden show. And then they announced SummerSlam will be at the Garden this year, and to promote the event, they had sent DX walking the streets of New York interviewing people. This largely consisted of two things. pulling women into alleys and convincing them to show their breasts, and a Triple H finding all Middle Eastern people and making fun of their accents.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine if you were like a young kid? Let's just say you're 13, 14, 15 years old. You're watching Raw in 2017, and your parents finally give you a subscription to the network, and you go back and you decide to watch some of these old Raws, and you watch this show. Your mind would be blown. They're pulling women in alleys and getting them to show their boobs.
Dude, he was doing the stereotypical Pakistani accent.
That was the next segment.
It doesn't
But
matter.
yes,
They're all rolled into one.
This was heavily racist.
He throughout.
Making fun of a guy in a turban. This is the future owner of this company.
Yeah.
Whose champion, by the way, is Indian.
Times have changed, Vinny.
Times have changed.
Hunter has grown up, clearly.
Well, I'd hope so. I sincerely would hope so.
I would think that somebody would go back and try to bury this.
Well,
And I don't mean...
That's why they have the warning at the beginning of the show.
I understand what you mean.
They're all characters playing a role of juvenile delinquents.
And racists.
In their 30s. Their 20s, whatever.
Mark Mero and Jeff Jarrett versus Steve Blackman and Farouk in the match of four guys. We'll just stick them all together for no reason. Farouk clobbers Jarrett, who bonks into Mero, who falls off the apron. Blackman pins Jarrett with a schoolboy. Then Jarrett and Mero shouted at each other because they had a King of the Ring match against each other coming up that nobody could possibly care about. Jeff Jarrett and Mark Mero in 1998. Double J and Marvelous Mark.
Dude, on the other show, they're setting up Hoovy versus Reese in a singles match.
Can you imagine that?
That's worse than this one.
By the way, Mark Mero just got rid of Sable for wearing skin-tight clothing, having her bosoms hanging out, and flaunting.
Yeah.
He traded that in for a Jacqueline.
Who does, in fact, do all the same things.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He's a hypocrite.
Yeah,
I see.
He's a heel.
Yeah. We had more of DX messing around in New York. The highlight of this, and really the highlight of the whole series of these, they ran into two Japanese guys, one of whom put the other in a Cobra Twist, and DX marked out for them.
Yeah, for the Cobra Twist.
Cobra Twist.
They even called
Billy,
it a Cobra Twist.
Cobra Twist.
Yep.
It was awesome.
Yeah, this was like, some of the stuff was funny. Some of it was painfully unfunny. Mm-hmm. Some of it was flat out racist. Mm-hmm. It was quite the hodgepodge of swings and misses.
There was one guy who basically just stopped his car in the middle of the road and just marked out. There's no other term
Wasn't
to
your
describe
buddy
it.
that comes to the pay-per-view parties in this video? You know who I'm talking about.
Derek?
Yeah. That was Derek, wasn't it?
I don't know.
The guy that ran out, he kept running out in the street.
I don't think Derek
and doing
would be
crotch chops.
in a random...
Watch it again. I'm positive it's him.
Don't think
I'm
Derek's
positive.
ever been to New York, but okay.
Nope, go watch. In fact, there's another segment later when the cops show up, and one of them looked exactly like a young John Cena. There were some
much more likely.
crazy cameos here on this show.
So we had Hunter making fun of an Indian man's head wrap. We had an old lady doing crotch chops. Went to commercial, came back. Hunter was still making fun of Pakistanis.
Yep.
China was trying on random hats and sunglasses. Even she cracked. And we got more women showing their boobs. Scorpio versus Owen Hart.
Tournament match here.
This was good.
King Ring qualifier. I don't know how, looking back, they talked the company into giving them 6 or 7 minutes to have a good TV match. They had 6 or 7 minutes to have a good TV match.
What I can figure out here is it's Owen Hart versus Scorpio. It's King of the Ring tournament match.
Yeah.
And Jim Ross here is talking about how Scorpio has nothing to lose in this match.
Sure he does.
Like, what are you talking about? It's
The
a
King
tournament.
of the Ring.
You have the whole crown to lose here, buddy.
Well, there's that.
I wasn't sure what his point was. I went back and listened again. I still couldn't get it.
So they went back and forth, and then Scorpio missed a moonsault, started selling his knee, and Owen worked the knee for 2 minutes and put him in a sharpshooter and won. Great.
Damn.
If every match was this good, I would never complain again.
What I liked about this is if it were today, Scorpio would have missed a moonsault and Owen would have immediately put him in his finish and won.
Yeah.
But instead, he missed the moonsault. Owen then beat the hell out of his leg. Then he put him in his hold, and then he won.
Either that, or he would have missed a moonsault. Owen would have gone to pick him up. Scorpio would have hit a cradle.
Sure.
And they'd gone back and forth 5 more times with near falls. This is just,
And 3 dives.
yes. This is just one guy misses a move. The other guy attacks the leg for a little bit and then finishes him off with his finisher. Great. Droz versus Chains.
Oh, boy.
That's another weird thing with Ross. So Droz is out here, and Jim Ross is going on and on. He says, I want to make it clear that Droz is not a member of the Legion of Doom. I thought, is it that important? Is this like employee versus independent contractor
For those
here?
of you who are keeping track of the stable standings.
Like, does he get benefits if he's a member, but they want to make sure he's not a member just so they don't have to pay him anything extra? Like, what's the difference?
If you're good for 6 months, you get shoulder pads.
He doesn't get to bang Sonny, which actually is important. So they're doing this match, and it's not very good, but it's fine. And then Chains climbs the top rope in the goofiest manner possible, and then comes off the top rope in a manner 1,000 times goofier. Chains wins with a DVD, and as soon as the ref counts 3, there's Undertaker to hit the ring and chokeslam both men. And I thought to myself, hey, now see, we can get a finish to a match, and we still have Undertaker come out and kill everyone. You don't have to ruin the match to have Undertaker run in. You can do a match and then have Undertaker kill people. Little did I know.
Little did you know.
Still wearing the same clothes from last week, I would...
Yeah, he hasn't changed.
Yeah.
May not have, actually.
He's only got one set of clothes.
Just wore sweatpants home to the graveyard, climbed into his coffin, slept for a week, and then came to the show.
They're starting the build for the Undertaker versus Mick Foley Hell in a Cell match.
Yes. So he called out Vince and went to break, and they come back, and there's Vince on the screen. These humanitarian awards, there were 2 of them. They were given out by some one active NFL player and one retired NFL player, but the highest paid Man of the Year award, that's a thing. These may have been legit awards.
Could have been.
DX came out for a promo. Allow me to summarize. Catchphrase, 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 catchphrase. Then they started to actually say something of substance when LOD interrupted. Hunter amused me greatly in this segment. LOD's music starts. Hunter is appalled. We're trying to get a promo here, he says. Animal hits the ring. It's Road Warrior Animal being Road Warrior Animal. He wants a title shot. Hunter says, what are you yelling about? All you had to do was ask. Jeez.
This was so lame. I know you laughed, but this is so lame. If you watch NXT and you look at how they do things, like Hunter is so much better as the guy in charge than an actual on-screen talent with a little bit of power. He fucking buried Legion of Doom. He just buried their whole gimmick. Their whole gimmick is they're the Legion of Doom, and they come out and they yell and scream and they do their LOD promos.
Yes.
They come out, do the same thing that they've done for well over a decade, and Hunter just belittles them. He mocks their characters. I was just like, you're as bad as Kevin Nash.
He was neither intimidated nor scared by these guys.
No, Kevin Nash is worse. I apologize for that. But he was close to as bad as Kevin Nash.
He found them goofy and silly and made fun of them to their face, and they stood there and took it. That is true. But I did laugh. So then out comes DOA, at which point Hunter says, how many microphones does the WWF own?
That was funny.
Just burying everything.
DOA wants a title shot too. DX has a huddle. They determine they cannot fight 4 dudes, so they can all suck it. Sergeant Slaughter comes out. He books what will be called a triple threat match, he says.
That's right. So now we can go to Wikipedia and I guess edit in the fact that the inventor of the triple threat match is in fact Sergeant Slaughter.
I guess as far as tag matches go.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the triangle match.
No, this is a triple threat match.
Which it was, actually, if you saw the Flair Sting Luger one. That was different.
Shall we retell the story of Maverick in Canada?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not the worst question in hindsight.
Tim told this kid to go out there and do a triple threat match. He said, you mean a triangle match or a triple threat match? Apparently, there's a difference.
Yeah.
Because in a triangle match, there's 2 pins.
He thought this youngster.
I guess a triangle match is an elimination match.
Yes, he thought one of these was elimination.
Sure.
And one was a one fall finish.
Tim blew his stack.
Yeah.
Told him to effing go out there and do his job.
Yep.
There was a girl involved in this match, so I remember. So the kid took the pinfall on the girl. And then Tim came unglued. He wanted 1 fall.
Yeah.
Like most nights working for Tim, it was no fun.
I mean, shouldn't Tim have given him the finish and then he would have had to ask such a stupid question?
Well,
because if there were 2 pinfalls, you'd know what it was, right? And if there's only 1 pinfall, you also know what it is. If you care about the differentiation between these 2 matches. And by the way, wait till we get to this stupid match.
So they announced this title match. Road Dogg is outraged. Billy thinks it's funny. Billy doesn't care about defending his titles against 4 men. Hunter announces someone has to leave so we can go to commercial. Hunter was so meta here. Undertaker's throwing furniture around backstage. Edge vignette. He is still angry and carjacking and assaulting random people. Mark Henry versus Vader.
Got to talk about this. So Mark Henry's very green, but
he was green.
This was a great mean guy match. And it ends, of course, with The Undertaker coming in and killing both guys. But I watched it and I thought, I wonder if this match was supposed to go like a minute. But The Undertaker was behind the curtain in the gorilla position, and he thought, this is the fucking best match I ever saw. These two dudes are just killing each other. Like, they're throwing each other around, and Mark Henry's just slamming Vader, and he's just...
with so much ease.
It was just a car wreck.
I know Vader went up for him, but God, Henry was a beast.
And I think Undertaker just sat back there and just giggled for a while.
Yeah.
Then he came down and killed him.
It was funny because Mark Henry had no problem picking up Vader. Vader, on the other hand, had a small problem picking up Mark Henry.
Well, that was probably a mix of legit and work, because the story was the first time he failed, but then later he got him.
Yeah.
So there's the Hulk Hogan logic. Anyway, Taker did eventually come out and chokeslam both men. He gave us a finish in the first match, not here. They showed Sable giving a tearful farewell to the WWF fans.
Oh my God. I didn't mention this last week when they showed the footage of this, but they're at the pay-per-view, and she's doing a match with Mark Mero. It's supposed to be an opponent she has chosen to face Mero, but she shows up with no opponent. So in storyline, we're supposed to believe not one man stepped up to defend Sable's honor in this whole company. So I guess that explains all the Viagra jokes. So she loses, and then they have the footage of her like woefully, solemnly walking up the ramp, dragging her suitcase behind her.
Mm-hmm. Still in her gear.
Yeah, that's the point. Like, last week I just saw it, and I moved on with my life. This week when I saw it again, I was like, she's leaving naked. Like, she's practically got no clothes on. Like, she didn't even put her clothes on before she left the arena. She's walking out into the real world in that outfit.
Shouldn't have a problem hailing a cab, that's for sure.
No.
You don't know that. She couldn't find a partner to face Mark Mero.
I had to pick her up.
You weren't there. You weren't in Boston, or wherever they were.
D'Lo Brown versus Dan Severn.
What a weird-ass match.
Do this match, it's not very good.
No, because Dan Severn's good at one thing. He's good at being Dan Severn.
Yes.
And having like a Dan Severn match.
Yes.
D'Lo Brown did not have a Dan Severn match.
No.
And this was a Styles clash.
Ross is outright saying Severn needs to stop running the ropes and shit and just take this fucker down.
Yes, those are exact words.
I mean, I don't think that's a quote. And then Severn hits a belly-to-back suplex, and he puts on a submission hold, and D'Lo screams in agony, and the match ends. And for 19 years now, I thought this was legit. Until I looked it up after this and found an interview D'Lo did where he said, no, this is an angle to set up the chest protector. Oh. So, okay. Severn, yeah, it looked, because it was, he had to have like one arm and one leg, and it looked like nothing. You would never see a wrestler submit to this hold, which is why it was so weird. And D'Lo just screamed and gave up. And I thought he had legit torn his pec. But apparently I got worked.
What a gimmick. You think Dan Severn's tearing this dude's pec? Come on.
So Owen Hart runs out and attacks Severn. But then Shamrock, still selling the ankle, limps down and chases Owen away.
So he's better than 99% of the WWE roster today.
Yeah, and he runs the ropes better too, with his bad ankle.
Yep.
Now we have the Sable farewell video.
How in the world do I not remember this?
All I can think of
this was like the 98 version of Tell Me a Lie.
It was, but do you know the key difference? Shawn Michaels was an all-time legend. Sable had been around for like 18 months.
Should have been called Thanks for the Memories, but the person singing it could have sang Memories every time, just for the comedy.
Didn't see that coming.
I did.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you. Come on, that was a good one.
You know how explaining jokes makes them unfunny?
Right.
You didn't even bother to tell the joke. You just explained it first.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did. Because it wouldn't have been funny otherwise.
We had those two...
it's all in the delivery.
Had those two football players meeting with Steve Austin. Val Venis versus Dustin Runnels. Val did a promo comparing himself to Dennis Rodman. Did he know Dennis was going to be on the other show?
No, they couldn't have because it was pre-taped.
I see.
They taped a week prior. But what I thought was funny was he compared himself to Rodman, and he says, we both call ourselves the Worm. And I'm like, is that a compliment?
I don't think so.
A worm?
To be fair, I don't think Dennis Rodman knew he was at Nitro.
He may not have, actually.
I think he had a better idea than Bischoff.
So we'll get to that whole roster. So Val, in the early portion of his WWF career, did way more homoerotic spots than I remember.
Yep.
He did the camel clutch hip swivel again. He also just pushed Dustin into the corner and, tell me if I'm lying, he just stroked him. That's what happened.
Well, he was wrestling Gold Dust.
I guess so. Just trying to, maybe he wanted to make a video with him.
He got confused.
I guess.
He thought he was in his other line of work.
So the wrestling here was very good. And then Taker came out to ruin another match and just chokeslammed both dudes.
This Dustin
Damn
was
it, Taker.
having a very rough time in his life, I believe, at this period, but he was still a damn good worker.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Still a damn good worker.
Still today.
He looks older then than he does today, is what's funny.
Yeah.
I should start painting my face.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Get into that gimmick.
DX shot Doc Hendricks and cameramen with super soakers. Main event, DOA versus LOD2K versus NEO.
This.
Ross keeps asking, what did Sonny do to get the Legion of Doom back on the same page? Lawler says, I can't answer that. It's a family show. So yes, in storyline, Sonny got the LOD back together by agreeing to fuck them if she could be their manager.
Yeah.
That is what's going on here.
You know what's even more amazing is, I'm sure there were backstage circumstances of which I don't recall or don't know or whatever, but so before Russo started writing the show, Sonny had a way bigger role and was significantly better utilized. You would think he would have been all about fighting some idea for Sonny.
Yeah.
Instead, she wore a stupid outfit and stood out there. That's all she did. Remember, she used to come out and she would dance and hawk T-shirts and sell stuff and do commentary and introduce people. Yeah, she was very talented.
One of the body Donnas.
And now she's just a Barbie doll with the LOD.
She's just out there.
Yeah.
So let's see. In classic Russo fashion, it's not enough to just have 6 men and 3 teams out there doing a wrestling match. We must also get Sergeant Slaughter getting beat up by The Undertaker backstage, and also X-Pac and Hunter sitting on stage holding up funny signs such as I'd rather be in China and Where's Rocco? So these dudes, A for effort. They were all working hard. Like I say, Billy Gunn could move. Say what you want about the guy, but that fucker was moving. Going along, it's not always pretty, but like I say, they're working hard. And finally, the DOA and LOD, they pull a fast one on the Outlaws by tagging them both in. So now they must wrestle each other.
So I'm watching this, and I'm like, okay, so it's a triple threat match. You've got 3 tag teams facing each other. It's not every man for himself. It's 3 tag teams. If it were a tag team match, you couldn't go tag both of the other guys and make them fight each other.
Right.
Why the fuck are you allowed to tag in 2 partners in a triple threat match? This is all going through my head, and at the exact same time, Jim Ross, his brain is doing the exact same thing that my brain's doing. He's like, so they both got tagged in. And Jerry Lawler's like, yeah, they both got tagged in. And Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross is like, what is going on here? And Lawler's like, you're an idiot. They both got tagged in. Don't you understand? And Ross is like, I understand. I don't get it. And I'm like, because it's fucking ridiculous.
The bigger question is, if this was real, why would you tag the other 2 teams that weren't the champion? Wouldn't you want to be in the ring at all times?
Exactly.
You must be in the ring to win.
They spent the entire match, like, the whole match, DX is on the apron, trying to get the other guys to fight.
That's dumb.
I'm like, you guys are fucking idiots. And then the other teams tag them in, they get in the ring, and they pin each other. And the match is
down,
over.
and Billy pins him.
Yeah. And then the other 4 guys are just outraged. And I'm like, you guys are the biggest fucking morons I ever saw in my whole life. You did this by design, you dumb shits, and now you're mad?
Yep.
An early example of making the baby faces look like the stupidest assholes.
Yes.
God, this was stupid.
We have I don't know where Filthy Tom was in 1998, but he was doing Geek of the Week. DOA and LOD win for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And then, just to make it clear, the announcers talked about how fucking stupid the Road Warriors and the DOA were. Just to make it, there's no question. These men are all dumb. A bunch of cops arrived backstage. Al Snow and Head hit the announce desk and got escorted away. Vince and the Stooges came out to some very wacky music. Meanwhile, the cops were confronting the Undertaker. Austin came out in his usual jorts and vest with no shirt. He had a tie around his neck. Vince was appalled, but he agreed to let the ceremony begin with Austin out there. So, like I say, it was George Martin, former New York Giants star, Darnell Autry, then current Chicago Bears running back. So they're giving these speeches to give out to these awards, and there is a sincerity, but also part of the joke they're talking about. But it's very hard to pay attention, because as they are talking, Ross and Lawler are talking over them constantly. This is the most annoying thing I've ever seen this week.
Yeah, and this is why the announcers nowadays just don't talk.
No, they shouldn't.
Yeah.
So Martin says, Vince McMahon, you made a donation this year that was much smaller in years past. And it took a few tries to get the check to clear, but in the end it was a large donation. You are our humanitarian of the year. Here's your award. And by the way, Vince, Steve Austin is my favorite wrestler.
So they, like you said, this is a real award. And maybe they announced that he was winning it, and Vince was like, I got this great idea. So they give him the award on national television. But it's Vince McMahon. He's not Stephanie. He used this as the opportunity to just be buried.
Yes.
Telling him that his check bounced twice, the check amount was lower than they expected. Vince never showed up to see the kids.
No.
And the thing about the Steve Austin line was, this had to be a spoof on when Mike Tyson said his favorite wrestler was Bruno Sammartino in real life, and Vince just about had an aneurysm on national television.
Yes. So then Darnell Autry spoke. He says, we're not even sure we actually got your check, but here is your award. And oh, by the way, my favorite wrestler is Steve Austin. So Vince takes all this in stride. He says, I will humbly but deservedly accept these awards. He's rambling on about how great he is when Austin picks his pocket, pulls out a big wad of money, says there's $1,200 here. We will donate this to the charity as well. He dubs Vince the jackass of the year. And then his music played. Everyone's all cheery. But then Undertaker's music hits. Football guys disappear. Vince and the Stooges and Austin are just in the ring. Austin's facing the ramp, ready to fight. Druids wheel out a casket. Austin's ready to fight Taker out of this casket, but then Mankind shows up from under the ring and jumps to Austin. Kane pops out of the casket and joins in. They destroy Austin. They lock him in the box. Vince is full of glee. His plan has worked. He got humiliated, but in the end, Austin got his ass beat and thrown into a box.
It was a rare show where Steve Austin didn't put one over on Vince McMahon.
No, every once in a while, the heel must get the heat.
I'd bet next week he gets his.
I suspect you're right. This show was exhausting. That's the word I used.
Dude, not like Nitro. I watched this one second. I got through this one in a breeze after that Nitro show.
Nitro was just long.
The other thing I loved about that segment was Vince is accepting his awards, and he says, I would like to thank all of you, the fans. And Jerry Lawler says, for what? And Jim Ross calmly says, buying tickets. It's like, well, you know what? He's right. Checkmate.
Sure.
Retro Raw.
See, it's exactly what I was talking about. He's no angel, Vinny. It's a gimmick.
Number 264.
He's got an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other. Literally. Yep.
There's nothing there, Brian. There's no literal.
Oh, there is. I've seen it. Can we move on with this?
What are you talking about?
This show's terrible. Both of them.
They were really bad.
They were horrible this week.
This one's not going off very good either.
Dude, it's way better than these two shows. I could have the worst show of all time. It's better than these two shows.
June 15th, 1998, episode 264 on Monday Night Raw. It opened with a shot of the Hell in a Cell cage mysteriously hanging above the arena.
Mysteriously, there's cables.
He's got a point. It wasn't levitating or anything.
I mean, what are you trying to say here? Craig's on my side.
For once, yes.
Hey, I didn't mean... I wondered how they did physically. I wondered why is that there?
We soon found out.
Yes,
There's going to be a hell of a cell match.
At the time, it was a goddamn mystery.
Didn't seem like a mystery to me. They're going to have a match in the Hell in a Cell on this show.
Sable
that's what I concluded.
came out in a cat suit for a promo.
Fine cat.
Mysteriously, by the way.
She thanked
legitimately mysteriously.
I don't know how
she's
she
fired.
got into it.
Well, that
fired.
was also explained.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Sable came out in a cat suit for a promo. She thanked the fans, brought out the person responsible for her return, Vince McMahon. The fans cheered for Austin as a 10-year-old boy shot double middle fingers into the camera. Vince asked Sable to read a prepared statement. Statement passionately denied any accusation that Vince had used legitimate humanitarian awards as a weapon against Steve Austin.
I gotta say this about Sable. She's not a very good promo, but her acting ability is underappreciated.
I see. She was reading this essentially as questions. Like she couldn't believe what she was
She did a
reading.
very good job of doing what she was told, but being very skeptical about it.
Yes.
But not too skeptical.
She read it. She didn't.
Yes.
So, denied that Vince had anything to do with the attack on Austin last week. And as Sable read, he promises to bring the parties responsible to justice? She made it a question. So Vince kissed her on the cheek.
You know,
Gasp in the crowd.
if it had not been for last night's Raw, this would have been the most awkward physical confrontation I saw all week. But Bailey hugging Corey Graves
That was creepy.
was significantly more awkward than Vince McMahon kissing Sable. Vince hasn't seen it, but it's true. Think about that. They turned Bailey into a bigger creep than Vince.
Turned into a bigger creep than Corey Graves, apparently. So, Vince was done. He was about to leave, but Austin came out to confront him. Began by escorting Sable out of the ring. Said chicken shit. It did not get censored. He stalked Vince around ringside for a while as Vince begged him to listen to reason. And finally, Vince said, "It was the Undertaker." And Austin paused.
Maybe they figured that chicken shit was a noun and not necessarily a swear word, so they did not bleep it.
Vince, I'm not making this part up. Vince swore on his grandmother's kittens that it was the Undertaker. I rewound that like 3 times to make sure.
He said that. Not that he mentioned his mother's kittens, but he used the word preposterous.
He did. So he said, "Listen, Taker challenged you 2 weeks ago. Then he forced me to call the cops on him, and I fell for it. And then he was surrounded by cops. That meant he could not have come down and made the save for you. Taker is from the dark side." He said he is the devil himself. So Taker came out to talk. He said, "I challenged you, Steve Austin, face-to-face, man-to-man, with respect for you and respect for that championship. Vince is lying." He said Vince would never be able to manipulate him, and then out came Kane, Paul Bearer, and Mankind. Mankind now wearing that stupid shirt and tie that he would wear basically for the rest of his career as Mankind. So Bearer said he and Taker had hatched this plan long ago, and now Taker had finally put it into action. Then he challenged Taker and Austin to face Kane and Mankind in a Hell in a Cell tag team match tonight. And Vince was down with this, and it all ended. This made no sense to me in 1998. I was kind of hoping when we got back to it, it would make sense to me now. It does not. This is all leading to Undertaker versus Steve Austin. So why does it matter if Austin and Taker are friends or not?
Well, it's leading to Steve Austin and Kane.
Well, in the short term.
Well, sure.
The long-term plan.
You think they had a long-term plan
They may not
watching
have.
this show? I think long-term plans are now out the window.
Still are, by the way. Yeah.
Not to mention, in storyline, the Kane and Mankind are already signed to a tag team Royal Rumble match.
Yes.
And so they've decided that on top of that, just for the hell of it, we're going to face these two guys.
I suppose so. Yeah, none of this made any sense. Vader versus Rock in a King of the Ring qualifier.
Rock was 10 days out from getting his knee scoped.
Ooh, that's playing something.
They did not care about anybody back then.
They sent him in there with the biggest, heaviest man on the roster.
Yeah. Announcers were talking about how, a week or two ago, Ross had been burying Vader for being fat. And they said Vader was embarrassed by his own performance against Kane and Over the Edge and made a concerted effort to improve his conditioning since then. So Rock, the fact he was hurt makes more sense because he was really green in this match. Taking corners like he'd never been in a wrestling ring before. They took turns doing stuff for no reason. Mark Henry ran down and attacked Vader after the Nation had been ejected. So this is the new thing on Raw. Everyone gets ejected and then they just come out and interfere anyway. Rock hit a rock bottom for the win.
I love that Mark Henry snuck down. In fact, they said he was sneaking down, at which point Jim Ross, who always tries to be honest, talked about how absolutely ridiculous it was that a 400-pound man could be sneaking to ringside. But the best part was, he was actually sneaking. He was hunched over.
Yeah.
He was kind of tiptoeing. He was trying to be sneaky. He failed.
A 400-pound man coming down the aisle by himself, trying to blend in.
Ref didn't see it.
No.
At one point, Rock picked up Beatty for a body slam, but he couldn't get him up. And then Rock hit him in the shoulder and then picked him up and body slammed him.
It was not good.
Apparently, to wear down an opponent, all you need to do is punch them in the shoulder.
We had a series of wacky DX skits where they were taking turns lecturing each other concerning the Triple H X-Pac match tonight. So Road Dogg first said that he had fought them both, and they both had very dangerous finishers. He said X-Pac would have no trouble landing his kick on Hunter's big nose. Hunter denied having a big nose.
Hunter with a totally straight face, like he was legitimately insulted.
Yeah.
Said, I don't have a big nose. And I'm like, yeah, you do. It's gigantic.
It wasn't even insulted, more just correcting. Just for the record. You want to know?
Yeah, like this is a factual statement. My nose ain't that big. It's the biggest nose in the room by a wide margin.
Yeah.
By a long margin.
Yeah, it's not so much wide as it is long.
Darren Drozdov versus Double J.
There's a drop, by the way.
I was trying to move on.
I know.
Mark Mero and Jacqueline came out immediately. Fan standing for Sable.
Can you imagine? You got Jeff Jarrett and Droz having a wrestling match.
No,
They
I
distract
couldn't.
everybody with Mero and Jackie, and then everybody's just chanting for Sable. They do not care one iota about this match.
Jacqueline had a great question to Jim. Why is Sable back?
Well,
Jim didn't have an answer.
She had sexual relations with Vince McMahon.
Is this factual?
It's a storyline.
That's the story. That it was abundantly clear when he kissed her on the cheek.
Wow, you got all that from a kiss on the cheek?
Yeah.
Huh.
Anyway.
You thought it was just contractual or something? Or
I just figure he liked pretty women around. Who doesn't?
Don't look at me.
I was not looking at you, you idiot.
No, he was.
So, Tennessee Lee put the moves on Jackie. Jackie slapped Tennessee Lee. Mero hit Jarrett with a low blow, and Droz threw Jarrett into the ring and pinned him. Every terrible WWE cliche they've been doing for the past 2 decades.
What I'm getting at, Craig, is the Vince McMahon character obviously had sexual relations with the woman.
I didn't get that
You're
from
trying
watching
to
this.
argue that he brought her back just because she was pretty.
I would.
You ain't Vince McMahon.
No, I'm better than him.
Wow. Wow.
It's fact, Brian.
We don't know that.
I'm pretty sure.
It's subjective.
I don't think Vince would agree.
I've never been to
I'm
court.
sure Vince would strongly agree. Powerfully.
Adamantly.
Adamantly.
God damn it.
I'm sure Hunter would disagree. Steph. Shane.
We had a shot of Val Venus's locker room where women were inside making noises.
Did we even talk about the finish?
Yeah.
I don't think we did. Tennessee Lee tried to proposition Jackie.
Word for word, I talked about this.
She slapped him.
in detail.
Yeah.
Jarrett went outside. Mero gave him a low blow. Droz pinned Jarrett.
I said all of that.
Okay. I was busy thinking about what I was going to say to Craig.
So we had a shot of Val Venus's locker room. And
Do we mention Val Venus' locker room? Go ahead.
there were women making noises inside. Now this may
What kind of noises? Just friendly?
This may surprise the two of you. I've seen a lot of porn in my day.
What?
Yeah. I've never heard women make noises like the women behind Val Venus's locker room. Something strange is going on.
Well, that's obvious.
But it wasn't...
I mean, apparently on this show, there's no sexual relations. So maybe they were baking. Maybe they were doing Vince's taxes.
well, I bet that would involve
They
screaming.
couldn't believe what he was writing off.
Actually, I had a buddy in high school when his parents would go do the ugly. They would tell his. They would go tell.
Excuse me.
You heard me. They would go tell.
Excuse me.
They would tell their son, "We're going to go upstairs and look at our taxes," and that means get out.
I was going to say, I bet he moved out on his 18th birthday.
Yeah, on the
It's
15th.
legal to go, I'm gone.
15th of April, he was gone. Yeah.
Vince didn't even get that joke.
I'm just trying.
Tax day.
I'm trying so desperately to get this show over with now. Billy Gunn explained to DX that they were about to go have the match of the year. He said in 1998, the real question is, does China's loyalty lie with Triple H or with X-Pac? This turned out to be a very important question down the line.
Well, it's more Hunter's loyalty, quite frankly.
Well, that's also true. Val Venis versus Chains.
See, this show's going to be over quick because what can you possibly say about this match?
It's true.
It went too long.
Look how bad Chains sucked.
It dragged forever. Val hit a money shot.
Chains was a horrendous wrestler.
And it was over.
I like when Val snapped his neck in the ropes, and Chains sold this by pausing, then standing straight up, and then jumping backwards. A 3-step process.
Yeah, it was terrible.
That's all I got. Val wanted a money shot.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Kevin Kelly asked The Undertaker, can you trust Steve Austin? Taker said, you can't trust anyone.
What a stupid question.
Who lives by the credo, don't trust anybody.
God bless Kevin Kelly. That was a stupid question.
But he promised Austin could trust him. Hunter told X-Pac he would not lay down tonight with the King of the Ring on the line. X-Pac said, I'm all healed up. I'm all ready to go. And they looked at each other for a second, and then Hunter said, I think you meant to say. And he said whatever X-Pac's line was going to be.
Yes.
And X-Pac said, well, now I don't have to say it. And they just left it in. They gave no shits.
I love that the European title is an absolute joke, but Hunter is determined to stand next to King Mabel.
We already won.
You're right.
Yeah.
He wants to stand by him again.
I guess so. Mark Mero versus Dustin Runnels. Double J and his crew came out to piss me off.
You mean Southern Justice?
Mm-hmm. I do, actually.
You know what's funny? Remember when we had all totally forgotten that Southern Justice ever existed?
Yep.
Well, we're watching it again, and it came out this week, and I'd forgotten about him already.
Yes.
Well, they don't do anything.
This is the
There's
most
not
forgettable
much to
act
them.
of all time.
It's the Godwins in suits.
They do nothing.
No, you stand there.
They were paid every goddamn week for this.
So
infuriating.
The finish of this match was a WWF Inception, as they did a distraction to set up another distraction. Jarrett hit the apron. This distracted Mero, so he didn't see Sable coming out until it was too late. Then he turned around and saw Sable. He was distracted again. Dustin won with the Bulldog.
This guy needs to work on his concentration.
I was so sick of DX by this point. They were back. X-Pac and Hunter were getting a little heated. And finally, China, who never spoke, got annoyed with both of them, told them to shut up and go wrestle like men.
She wasn't wrong.
Hey, they went out and wrestled like men.
They did.
They did not have a fake match. There was no fake match in this fake match.
That's right.
They had a real fake match. Mm-hmm. And it was awesome.
Kevin Kelly interviewed Dustin, who thanked his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for the win. And for sending Sable out to distract his opponent, I guess. Then, yes, X-Pac versus Triple H in a King of the Ring qualifier.
You know, Triple H and I guess actually more X-Pac. This guy was in WCW, and remember, like, he'd be gone for great stretches of time, but like everybody disappeared for long stretches of time. So, if you just watched the show week to week, you didn't even really think about the guy being there. He never wrestled on TV, very, very rarely. He wrestled in the pay-per-views that we didn't watch, and like most of the viewers didn't watch either. He comes back to WWE, he hasn't wrestled much.
He hasn't wrestled since his return.
No, and all of a sudden he's in there, and he's one of the best wrestlers in the country.
You realize this guy's really good.
Where in the fuck has this guy been for the last 3 years?
This was his first match in WWE since May of '96.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
What an absolute waste of talent. He was walking around WCW with a goddamn video camera,
Yes.
just being a numbskull,
Yes.
and wrestling occasionally on pay-per-view.
So yeah, and he was, on top of all that, he was extra motivated to have a good match here, working with a good friend who was extra motivated to make him look good. They had a good match. Shocking.
I think Hunter was mostly motivated to make himself look good. But
Well, that always helped. So China, again, they came out alone, then China came out to be at ringside. She threw both of them into the ring to show that she wasn't on anyone's side. She just wanted them to fight like men. So X-Pac gets thrown outside. Rock cuts a promo on Hunter from high up in the crowd.
Third level.
Yeah. So Hunter's distracted by this promo. Hunter and the announcers miss Owen Hart running out and crotching X-Pac on the guardrail.
And the cameraman.
The wide shot got it.
I saw it happen.
Yeah. So Owen runs away. Rock says, you can turn around and look at your buddy now. Hunter turns around, is shocked to see X-Pac on the floor, goes to try and get it back in the ring, but X-Pac can't stand. Or, it's a King of the Ring qualifier, orders Hunter to get in the goddamn ring and get this count-out win. So Hunter does. Hunter wins by count-out. And they all go 10 to Owen. And the announcers had to be smartened up that something had happened to Owen, and they showed a replay.
10 to X-Pac.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
This is the best 5 minutes of this show.
Well, that's saying very little, but yes.
It was only 5 minutes.
Yeah.
5:14.
It was awesome.
It was a very good 5:14. So this gives us our full brackets for the King of the Ring tournament. Ken Shamrock versus Mark Henry. That sounds awful.
You know what, though? Let me say something about that. The next match coming up here is Severn and Shamrock versus Owen and Mark Henry. And when the match starts, they alerted us once again that next week on this show, it is Ken Shamrock versus Mark Henry. And I thought the same thing. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. That sounds fucking terrible. And then they got in the ring, and it was good.
It was good. Mm-hmm.
So maybe that match will be great next week.
Shamrock was a really good pro wrestler. He doesn't get enough credit. And he's remembered as a UFC guy who dabbled in wrestling. He was a really good pro wrestler.
My point is, don't denigrate that match.
Fair enough.
Although you could be right.
May I denigrate Double J versus Mark Mero?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be terrible.
Zero interest. Negative interest. That's like if I was, I guess it's going to be on Raw, but if I had bought the pay-per-view and then that match came on, I may have changed the channel. Rock and Triple H will obviously be good. And then Dan Severn and Owen Hart, which is intriguing.
Yeah, there was some great wrestling.
Especially after watching them later.
Yeah, both of those pairings look good in the tag team match.
By the way, they had this exact same match, Owen and Severn, 2 weeks ago. And I was laughed at because I said it looked good on paper.
They had it 2 weeks ago?
Yes. Owen versus Dan Severn was 2 weeks ago on Raw.
I don't remember it.
I
you
believe
remember
you.
it, Vinny?
No, but I believe him.
Are we sure it happened?
I'm positive because I said it looked good on paper and you mocked me.
But was it good in the ring?
It was fine.
Okay. That's what I was getting at.
Al Snow came out as Avatar with an Avatar mask.
I remember this
as
now.
well.
Severn's selling wasn't very good. Right?
Well, it's never very good.
Yeah, Severn's selling is not very good.
So they go to break. They come back. Lawler's cutting a promo on Snow. Snow buries the Avatar gimmick as if anyone remembered it in the first place.
Dude, now listen. I don't have the best memory. Mm-hmm. I didn't remember a match from 2 weeks ago. But I do remember Avatar. Al Snow claims that the whole Avatar gimmick was that fans were supposed to know that it was Al Snow.
Right.
That is right?
I think so.
Because that's news to me. I don't have any memory of that.
Wasn't the gimmick that he wore a mask down to the ring but then took it off to wrestle?
No.
Or was that somebody else?
Avatar always wore the hood.
And we were supposed to know it was Al Snow? I must have been damn clueless at the time. I just thought it was some idiot wearing a...
Well, I knew it was
An Aldo
Al Snow.
Montoya looking mask is how he described it
Right.
here.
Yeah, I don't know.
No one reacted to this because no one remembered Aldo Montoya either. Snow accused Lawler of lewd behavior, then accused Lawler of screwing him in graphic detail. They brawled. Snow hit a ref with a Northern Lights bomb. He laid out Lawler and some security geeks with head and ran through the crowd. This was a horrendous promo from start to finish.
He also accused McMahon of attempted murder of his career.
Attempted.
Yeah.
Successful.
Not enough. He's on the show.
Wow.
DX doused Michael Cole with super soakers and then the director as well. Cole asked Austin,
Vinny's given up.
can you trust The Undertaker? Austin said, I don't trust Taker and he shouldn't trust me either. Then, as promised, Owen Hart and Mark Henry versus Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn.
Okay, hold on. This is Avatar. We're all wrong. So, Avatar came to the ring unmasked.
Ah, I had it backwards.
Put the mask on.
I see.
Wrestled. And then took it off.
Okay, I have no memory of this.
I had a memory. I just had it in the wrong order.
Now, maybe I'm confusing it with when he was Shinobi.
Aha.
That's probably it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
but
got
still.
it.
So they showed clips of Severn and Shamrock fighting in the UFC. And then Severn tearing D'Lo Brown's pectoral muscles last week.
His pectorials, wow.
That's what Ross said repeatedly. So Severn's on the apron just being Dan Severn. Just stone-faced. And then he tags in and starts throwing Mark Henry around.
Oh, yeah.
And people love this.
Awesome.
Because it's awesome when giant people throw each other around. We had Severn and Owen doing some really good wrestling.
Yeah, they wrestled. That was the best
They
thing in
did
the match.
go-behinds and fought for superior position.
Yep.
And we had, let's see, Owen put Shamrock in a sharpshooter. And then DX just ran in and attacked for the DQ. This led to a huge mess of a brawl. Vader was out there. The Nation's out there. Best as I could tell, it was setting up Nation versus DX and UFC in a 10-man tag. But that's just a guess.
You know what I'm starting to realize as I watch all of these shows here? So, as much as people mock our memories, if you go through our reviews of 96 and 97 Raw, like there's so much stuff that we remember vividly. You hit mid-1998, and I can't remember a goddamn thing. And you can't?
Yeah.
Like, this show, as soon as Russo started booking this show, it's not something wrong with my memory or anything of that nature. It's the way the shows are designed.
There must be 95 things happening on every show.
There's a million fucking things happening.
None of them lead anywhere.
Like, there's a tag team Royal Rumble. There was the second Hell in a Cell match on this show. Over my head.
There's too much going on. It's all coming from out of nowhere, and it's all leading to nothing.
And it's all meaningless.
Yes. It's just forgotten
It's like
shit.
Raw today. It's totally like Raw today.
You forget because they don't give you a reason to remember.
No, there's zero reason to remember. In 97, I would go back and watch stuff again. It was so great. Now it's like, dude, I got too much stuff to watch. Why would I watch the Tag Team Royal Rumble a second time anyway?
Right.
That's a great question. So there was a Tag Team Royal Rumble. As if it's not dumb enough to just do a Tag Team Royal Rumble for no reason. 30-second intervals.
Dude, if there's one thing worse than a geek battle royal, it's a geek Royal Rumble.
It's a geek with a partner.
That's what this is. This is a geek Royal Rumble.
2 geeks the price of 1.
Right.
And then Mankind's in there. It was so depressing. And Kane.
The only funny... I'm not even going to bother going through team by team.
Can you name them all for us at
Well,
least?
I wrote them down. All right, I will.
Read them off.
Here's the order they came down in.
We got it. This people must hear this.
Because
This is who they chose for a Tag Team Royal Rumble.
Fair enough. And by the way, there was nothing but guys coming out every 30 seconds. Nothing else happened.
Right.
So, LOD 2000, Kane and Mankind, The New Midnight Express, The Headbangers, The DOA, Kurgan and Golga.
Dude. This is all so forgettable.
Too much in their debut as a team.
Too much.
Not too cool.
Too much.
Too much.
Right.
Farouk and Steve Blackman, Bradshaw and Taka Michinoku, and finally Terry Funk and Scorpio.
Oh my God.
Now, remember when I asked why not just do a battle royal? There have been 2 eliminations by the time Funk and Scorpio got in the ring. So there's 16 men in the ring anyway. Why did they bother doing a Royal Rumble? What was the point?
Because I'm sure they thought it would be something different.
It was.
The only thing worth mentioning, and there's 2 things worth mentioning in this match. First of all, Funk hits the ring. Actually, let me step back. The oddities come out. It's Kurgan and Golga. And I thought to myself, strange, when they're trying to make Kane the biggest monster on the roster, they take the one guy they have bigger than him and throw him in the same match. But I didn't think much of it. So Terry Funk gets in there, he's punching Kurgan. And Lawler says, look at what an idiot Terry Funk is, picking a fight with the biggest, meanest monster out there. And he says this, and Jim Ross says sternly, that would be Kane. Because Lawler forgot the storyline. And Lawler's like, oh, you're right, Kane's bigger and scarier, but that Kurgan's a monster too.
They were so confused at the end. Like, they were so confused. And finally, the best Ross could come up with at the very end is, well, we know there's 2 teams left.
Well, even that was a mystery. The Headbangers, by the way, Kane pressed one of them, tried to press them from the ring to the floor, and he hit the apron really, really hard, and it looked very, very bad. So technically, it comes down to Kane and Mankind against Funk and Scorpio. Only you can't tell, because there's still, like, leftover guys hanging in because they don't know their partner's out yet. And then Funk and Mankind start brawling on the floor.
Yeah.
In a Royal Rumble.
Yeah. Went under the bottom rope.
Yeah. Eventually, Kane tombstoned Scorpio.
No, stop.
Oh, right, yeah.
Mankind grabs his chair, and he fucking waffles Terry Funk so hard in the head. Then he holds the chair up to his head. Kane boots the chair into his head, and then he's eliminated. This, like, somebody asked the question in the mailbag, like, do you expect an NFL-style lawsuit in WWE someday?
There is one.
I mean, like, there's going to be 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
Like, this stuff, I can't even believe this whole era is on the network. I watch these shows, and it's criminal. It's absolutely criminal, the way that everybody is just killing each other. And I don't buy this. Well, no one knew it's bad to hit some guy in the head as hard as you can with a fucking steel chair. Like, if nobody knew that was bad, why is it a spot in wrestling?
That's true.
That's a good point.
This is horrible. The match was horrible. It was all horrible.
Everything about this sucked. They go to break. They come back. Paul Bearer cuts a promo, says his men are now top contenders to the Outlaws tag titles. Mankind begins to recite a poem about what they're going to do to Austin and Taker. And then we had Austin and Taker versus Mankind and Kane. They played Taker's music. He didn't show up. So Kane and Mankind leave the cage to brawl with Austin. Paul Bearer says, I shall now lock myself alone inside Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
Why the hell did you do that?
Well, just in case Taker came out and the other guys were busy. He didn't want him to get in.
So the only reason to do this is to set up himself being locked in there with Taker.
Of course, because shouldn't he know this guy's got magic?
Yes. This is the... I didn't get angry then. I'm getting angry now. This is so stupid.
It was really
Why did
bad.
he lock the cell?
Because he's an idiot. He's a heel. At least he was a heel.
So he locks the cell. But what did he hope to achieve or avoid?
He thought that the Undertaker was going to come out of the dressing room. Mm-hmm. And if the other two guys were busy with Austin, he might go straight into the cage and kill him.
Then why didn't
he locked himself in.
Then why did he order his men to attack Austin in the first place? Why not say, stand by my side? None of this makes any sense.
Well, Austin, either they went after him or Austin was going to come after them.
Well, then
This is the least of our problems on the show.
Taker comes out through the ring and kills Paul Bearer for seriously like 8 minutes.
Got blood everywhere.
Throwing him in the cage, really dropping the stairs on his head.
Dude, Vinny is not exaggerating.
No.
Undertaker, first off, we have Austin absolutely killing Mankind with a chair shot.
Yeah.
Just fucking lays this guy out, chair right to the head. Then they cut to inside the ring, and the Undertaker, Paul Bearer, is slumped against the post. I am not making this up.
No.
He's sitting up, slumped against the post, bleeding everywhere.
Already a bloody mess.
He's facing the stage. Undertaker is coming up behind him. He has these steps lifted directly over his head. I realize they're not really 300 pounds, but they ain't that light. And he just... bonk, drops from behind. Paul doesn't even see it coming.
Nope.
Drops the steps straight down on the dude's head. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And you know what? All this ranting and raving we're doing, like, in a couple weeks, Mankind's getting thrown off the fucking top of this goddamn cell.
Yeah.
I can't even believe I didn't quit in this era.
No, we ramped up in this era.
So...
No, I'm talking like covering it, watching it.
I see. We not only watched this, we actually got in the ring to do
What
this.
in the hell were we thinking? I still never let anyone near my head.
No, you did not.
No, nobody. Arms full extended.
Mm-hmm.
So Kane is now frantically climbing up to the top of the cage and trying to break in for some reason.
This man was not a fan of heights. He didn't stand up one time on top of that cell. He was on his hands and knees, clutching
And
every stable bar that he could find.
His very absolute best to always make sure he was on at least 2 panes of the
Yes.
fence. At least one beam underneath him at all times.
Now, the best part is, he's afraid of heights. Steve Austin climbs up on this goddamn cell. He's not afraid of heights. He gets up on there, he stands straight up, and he starts running.
Basically.
He trips, he lands on Kane, and the whole cell bows down. And I'm like, oh my God, they could have died.
Yeah.
Like, that thing could have broken just like it did with Mankind, and they would have fallen through and just been dead.
So, the show ends this way. My question at this point was, How can Paul Bearer ever be seen on television ever again? He has been savagely beaten by the Undertaker for like 10 minutes with weapons. He's going to come back next week and be fine, isn't he?
Well, of course.
So the show ends, and then we get Extra Attitude. Or whatever.
Thank God we got this.
Whatever the fuck it's called.
Dumb.
Attitude Extra.
So they come back. Mankind is now brawling in the ring with Taker. Austin and Kane very carefully make their way back down to earth. There's a point where poor Kane, his hands are still at the very top of the cell. His feet are standing on like a crossbeam. But they cut to a wide shot, and you can see, and Kane obviously is a very big guy. And he was still closer to, obviously, to the top of the cell, but he was not halfway down yet. The cell is huge.
There was a good 6-foot drop from...
Oh, way more than that.
From his feet.
Yeah, way more than that. So, eventually they all get down there. Taker and Kane brawl up the aisle. Austin immediately pins Mankind with a stunner. And then Taker and Austin have a stare down. I'm not sure Taker was happy they won. The show was very boring.
Man, oh man.
I don't know how this qualifies as a Hell in a Cell match, though.
Well, it is. There was a pinfall.
There was there was a Hell in a Cell cage out there.
You know, Steve Austin, I know he gets an abundance of credit, but he still doesn't get enough. You take that guy off this god-awful show, they're losing to Nitro. And you know what? Nitro sucks. The show is so long, and it's just so much filler. Mm-hmm. It's impossible. Like, it's a struggle to pay attention to it. All right, Retro Raw.
All right, let's get through this in about 10 minutes. Raw number 265.
Is this the one you watched?
I actually got through most of it.
And Nitro?
I actually got through most of it.
Oh, wow, okay, well, here we go.
Yeah.
June 22nd, 1998. Vince McMahon comes out for a promo, which at this point, isn't this like the 6th week in a row? This is how these Retro Raws have started.
Well, you know, it's a pattern now.
Apparently. He calls out Kane, says Kane will be the next WWF champion. Now, I will say, last week, Undertaker beat up Paul Bearer for 10 minutes, and I thought he'd just be out here on Raw again. No, he was at home. So at least it was selling the injury somewhat. So Kane's alone. Vince promises Sunday will be the greatest day of Kane's life. His tortured childhood will be gone forever. Kane uses a voice box to speak for the first time. He says if he does not win the WWF title, he will set himself on fire. At this point, they showed Paul Bearer on his couch freaking out. Vince says not only will Kane set himself on fire, he will breathe his last breath. And they go to commercial.
How many times people go that Vince is like P.T. Barnum, and it's like, he's just a wrestling promoter. Not this show. He was P.T. Barnum doing this promo for Kane.
I was going to say he was Dario Cueto.
He was a full-blown carny.
Yes.
Here promoting this goofy match with this goofy stipulation.
With the stipulation that if this man loses, he will set himself on fire and die.
Yep.
Okay. He will kill himself if he cannot beat Austin.
He will commit suicide via flame.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how he's selling this paper.
Get your tickets now.
Like, if we believe this is real, Vince he's selling it as either, finally I get that goddamn belt off Austin. And if not, a guy's going to burn himself to death on my pay-per-view.
The guy who failed me.
Yeah, that's the storyline here.
The guy who's already been burned once.
You don't book stuff like this, do you? I hope not.
There was no fire on the Defy show I went to.
Well, not yet.
That's
you
true.
Call it Defier. Could be the name of the show that you do that stipulation.
Matt is furiously taking notes. Ken Shamrock versus Mark Henry in a King of the Ring match. I love The Rock coming out in a Hawaiian shirt tucked into his khaki shorts with loafers.
Yep.
So it's like Brian's outfit. Henry is clobbering Shamrock and squeezing him, and it's going on a long time. And then Shamrock hits a Hurricane Rana. Vader runs out and lays out Henry.
My God, this Hurricane Rana. Like, you're doing a Hurricane Rana on Mark Henry. So, like, you know you can jump up on his shoulders. Mm-hmm. And then you just kind of lean back. All the guy has to do is forward roll.
Yeah.
Henry almost killed himself.
Yeah.
Just trying to roll over.
He was
not built for this.
He was not built for this and needed, honestly, should not have been on TV at this point. But he got through it. So Vader lays out Henry. Shamrock gets a belly-to-belly for the win. Shamrock is in the Final Four, which will be at the pay-per-view.
This match was not bad. It was Ken Shamrock versus Mark Henry, and it was acceptable.
It was Ken Shamrock versus, like, a bear.
Yeah, and it was all right.
Henry was a huge, obviously, powerful man, but he had no idea what he was doing. And Shamrock says, just grab a bear hug and hang on.
So this sets up whoever Jeff Jarrett and Mark Mero, whoever wins that will actually wrestle Shamrock,
Yes.
the King of the Ring.
Yeah, wait till we get to these brackets.
Yeah.
Edge was bebopping in the crowd, just chilling. Paul Bearer was hanging out on his couch. DX did a wacky video dousing a director with super soakers. X-Pac versus Dustin Runnels.
We got the X-Pac rematch of the DX music here for the first time. I think it was the first time. Maybe they did it last week.
They did it last week.
Yeah, it was still new. So they got way more time than I would have thought. Had a pretty good match. Very good match, actually. X-Pac gets cheered coming out, but then he's dressed as a total heel. Chyna interferes for the heat. Then Dustin's making his comeback. She trips him. Dustin forgives her because he's doing the Bible thumper gimmick.
Right.
And then turns around and eats a kick for the win. Hunter comes out to congratulate X-Pac for no reason, by the way. Just had to get his face on TV. And then Dustin offers a handshake, but X-Pac crotch chops him, and everyone cheers.
You know, the Dustin of 1998 was having some problems. He's not nearly as good a worker as Goldust today. I thought this match should have been better. The X-Pac we saw last week was awesome, and I was imagining Goldust today. If you had Goldust today and X-Pac then, that'd be much better than this match.
X-Pac was bumping like Kurt Hennig. He was overselling. He got thrown into the turnbuckle at one point. He jumped up on the bottom turnbuckle, turned around, and did a full flip.
Yes.
Yeah, that was Sean's old move.
Turnbuckle.
Yeah. Paul Bearer did a promo from his home. He's vowed that he would be in his son's corner of the pay-per-view to make sure his son won and did not have to light himself on fire and die.
Paul Bearer was convalescing at his home. He was in a robe.
Yeah. It was so quaint.
Drinking tea.
There's a TV in the background, and Paul is sitting there in his robe, and he's like eating Cheetos.
There's a point here where he's like eating nuts and drinking tea or something.
Yep.
It's just...
And the TV's on in the background, and I thought, this is so quaint. Like, there's no cell phone.
No.
There's no tablet. There's no computer. He's not fucking around, not paying attention like every other wrestling.
Well, see, I actually thought because maybe it's because the camera was behind him, he had turned to get his face on camera, but he appeared to have no interest in whatever was going on in the ring at the time.
Well, of course not. It was Jerry Lawler and Al Snow. But the point of this is he was watching wrestling.
Yeah,
it was weird.
Jerry Lawler and Al Snow had a horrendous segment.
This was fucking so awful.
So Jerry Lawler says Al Snow is in this building disguised as an old lady. If you see a little old lady with two heads, that's Al Snow, he says. Al comes out dressed as an old lady. Here was where Paul Bearer was so concerned about the possibility his son would be lit on fire and dying that he's watching the show eating peanuts.
That's quite an angle alert, by the way. Yeah. Paul Bearer just hanging out at his home with a camera there.
They randomly cut to him in the middle of this promo.
Yeah.
This went on for a while. It was all just really stupid, terrible comedy. Has there been any good Al Snow segment?
Dude, all Al Snow does nowadays is complain about wrestling. And meanwhile, I'm watching his stuff, and he's involved with insider terminology. He's talking about doing the job.
That's actually a goddamn good point.
Talking to a fucking mannequin head.
Pin me, pay me, he says. He lays down, I'm counting lights.
It's atrocious.
The Al Snow of 2017 would have murdered the Al Snow of 1998.
Has he forgotten this guy existed?
I don't know. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're exactly right. So it comes down, Al gets a contract. It's Al Snow and Head as a tag team versus Too Much at King of the Ring. And it's a win a contract or get fired match. This was appallingly awful. Mark Mero versus Double J in the King of the Ring.
You were not looking forward to this, but it was a competent match that nobody cared about.
It was fine. There was a point where...
90s Jeff Jarrett.
There was a point when... Inside jokes, everyone. No, unmuting.
90s Jeff Jarrett. What about him, Brian?
Who did you think he was better than?
Hold on.
Who was it?
I am the witness.
Okay.
I listened to you two argue on a trip to Vancouver. You were arguing for Tokyo Magnum, and you were arguing for Jeff Jarrett.
Yes. And I was right.
Well,
all along, I was right.
Was I really arguing for Tokyo Magnum?
Absolutely.
Yes.
This was not the right show to bring that up.
No, it wasn't.
He had a terrible match.
No,
God damn.
Fine.
But Jarrett was so boring, dude.
Jarrett was so good.
Oh my God. Vinny, you want to get on this now? We've been watching.
Why don't you do a poll and see who was a better worker?
A poll?
Jeff Jarrett or Tokyo Magnum?
Well, I know that Tokyo Magnum was in the greatest squash match I ever saw, and I can't say that about anything involving Jeff Jarrett, so that gives the edge to Tokyo Magnum.
No way. Well, Jeff
again.
Jarrett's never been involved in a squash match. He's too good for that.
Years.
Oh, wow. Do you remember when I sent him? Remember when I sent him the newsletter and I drew
Yes.
Jeff Jarrett on the back?
I
of
was
it?
there when you drew it.
Remember
Yeah,
that?
I didn't know that was Jeff Jarrett.
Oh, how dare you? Who the hell else would it have been? He
You started off.
had a blinking hat and he was on a horse.
You drew a guy a
It's a
blinking hat.
limited options.
You drew a guy in a blinking hat that said "I suck" with a word balloon, and it was fine. But then you had to keep adding details, and like 15 minutes later, I hear you mutter, "Well, I ruined this."
Well, damn it, I tried. But you know what? This sucked.
There was a point here. First, Mero hits a power bomb, so fine. Then Jarrett tries a power bomb, but he falls. He doesn't fall. He like throws Mero backwards, and Mero's legs hit the top rope, and his head lands on the mat. I think this was their plan. I think that's what they were trying to do.
What a dumb plan.
Now, Brian, to your point, I will say I wrote here it was a perfectly fine Raw match that nobody gave two shits about because it pitted the lamest heel on the roster against the other lamest heel on the roster. So Jacqueline gets involved, Tennessee Lee gets involved. There's a low blow. There's a TKO. Sable and her tits come out.
Oh my God, we got to talk about
They've
her
gotten
boobs.
bigger.
They are
in 1 week.
undoubtedly bigger.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to hear anyone tell me like, you know, when we used to watch TNA and Velvet Sky would come out and we would argue about are they new or is it like the 3 bra gimmick or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
These were undoubtedly new.
She was wearing a catsuit. There is no hiding a thing.
They were so big. I was like, porn stars are laughing at her behind their back. I mean, it was ridiculous how big they were. Ridiculous.
So this distracted Mero, the giant Hooters. And
Distracted everybody except Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett was fine with it. He hit a DDT and won. And Kevin Kelly was doing post-match interviews with the winners, talking about how they're going to win the King of the Ring. That was a cool thing. It's something that should be brought back. Road Dogg.
The tournament sucks.
Well, Road Dogg versus Kane. Road Dogg was awesome in this match.
He really was.
He was bumping and selling like a motherfucker. Kane hit a big boot. I've seen 1,000 guys hit 1,000 big boots, and Road Dogg grabs his face and hits the mats, and you just knew this fucker's in bad shape. So Kane's got a title shot in 6 days, so he took the entire match, and eventually hit a chokeslam and a tombstone for the win.
Yep.
And Bears on
Keep that in mind, by the way, as you mentioned, there's a pay-per-view in 6 days.
Yes.
Road Dogg tried a low blow at one point, and he actually accomplished it. Kane didn't sell this.
Kane released the chokeslam and then just grabbed another one. Yeah.
To which Jerry said, he has titanium testicles.
Yes.
I'm skeptical.
Of his testicles?
Being titanium.
You're skeptical
And
of
his testicles.
You're
since he didn't
skeptical of his
sell it.
testicle?
Yeah.
Say that 5 times fast.
What an amazing spectacle.
I'm skeptical.
Oh, God. So, as Kane's walking up the ramp after his win, his father appears on the Titantron, vows again that he'll be there for his son on Sunday.
You know what I loved about this at the very beginning? How many segments have we seen in the last 3 years, or 2 years or whatever, where Paul Bearer is backstage somewhere, and the lights flicker, and he has a panic attack? Yeah. Well, here we are. He's in his house all by himself. Well, actually, he's not all by himself.
He's got a camera crew there.
There's a random woman there, because we hear her screaming. But the lights flicker, and he blows it off.
Yes. Non-issue.
Hope he learned his lesson.
He says Taker tried to kill him last week because Taker didn't want Paul to reveal the secret plan. Then the lights flickered.
Is this Sean and Hunter
There's
again?
always a secret plan.
And Taker appeared in the house in street clothes, although much nicer street clothes than he had on Raw 2 weeks ago.
It's true.
Someone smartened him up.
No sweats.
He beat the hell out of Bearer. They lost signal. I think we were supposed to think Paul went through a table or something, but the point is Taker showed up to Paul's house and killed him.
Well, they both got hurt. This thing only went like 30 seconds, and Undertaker hurt his ankle, and Paul hurt his ankle.
Awesome.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what happened.
Edge versus Jose Estrada.
Oh, this poor thing.
Edge's in-ring debut. I had forgotten this. It's Edge's first match on Raw. He does one dropkick, one spear, one flip dive. The flip dive, he lands on Jose's head and breaks his neck.
Barely. Well, here's what happened. He did the flip dive, and I mean, it was an inch.
Yeah.
There was like a 1 inch, and his leg landed on top of the guy's head, and Estrada goes down and doesn't get up, and they end the match. Now, if you go anywhere on the internet, it claims that Jose Estrada suffered a broken neck.
I thought it was a stinger.
In Edge's book, and in the Observer that week, they said it was pinched nerves.
That would be a
and
stinger.
he would be out a little while.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the story of the broken neck came from, but I don't think he had a broken neck.
I can confirm he took a year off, but he was wrestling in Puerto Rico at least as late as 2007.
Yeah, he came back. This was not the end of his career.
Huh.
So Kane, who of course has just watched The Undertaker beat up his father, he's throwing a tantrum backstage, moaning, screaming, throwing furniture around. Mankind's trying to calm him down, tell him everything will be okay. I felt so much sympathy for Kane here. I felt so bad for poor Kane. Couldn't help his dad. King of the Ring match, Dan Severn versus Owen Hart.
Every Dan Severn match, I'm just like, Dan Severn versus Owen Hart? I'm like, what?
It's twice now.
Doesn't matter. Every time it's new.
No one cared about this, but they had a fun mean guy match. Grappled a lot. Matt had not heard that in a while.
Yeah. He may have been in one.
He may have, actually. Oh, yeah. Matt, the Inferno versus Craig Corrosion may have been a mean guy match.
A mean guy match, yeah.
So the finish sucked. Owen is in control, but leaves the ring to grab a chair. The ref gets the chair. Severn gets the chair. Owen has to walk around the ring to put himself in position for X-Pac to run down. X-Pac runs down, nails him in the back of the head with a chair.
Dude.
Blood everywhere.
I mean, to be fair, he hit him in the back,
Yes.
but he hit him too high, and so the edge of the chair hit the back of his head and busted him open. He needs stitches, but Jesus.
It's so bad because you see it all the time. You aim for the back, you end up hitting him right in the back of the head. Hits a gusher. Blech.
So they throw Owen in the ring, and Severn hooks the pec stretcher for the win.
Is that what it's called?
That's what I'm calling it.
Okay.
You got a name for this submission hold?
No.
The titty extender.
Maybe,
How about that?
Maybe that's happened to Sable.
Sure.
Twice.
I mean, clearly it did.
So they go to break.
Hey, that reminds me, by the way, maybe Matt would know something about this.
Mm-hmm.
Samito mentioned a name today that I'd completely forgotten about, but when I heard the name, I distinctly remembered. Who remembers Caveman Kinder?
Yes, I do.
I only remember you telling me about him.
Yeah, there was like a story about him, right?
There's a lot of stories about him. I saw him, and I can't remember who. He was like a certified nurse or an RN for a shoot job. And I remember him stitching up people with a needle and thread in the locker room. And it might even have been to Samito.
It could have been.
But I do remember, I actually wrestled Caveman Kinder once.
Really?
Yes.
I only have vague memories of him. I don't even remember the stories I told Vinny.
He was a bear of a man.
He was a bear of a man. He was a fitting caveman.
Yes.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to do some research. I know we talked about him on some shows.
So this all led to the last King of the Ring match, Rock versus Triple H. Hunter still getting cheered, even though DX cheated to win on the show and then screwed Owen out of his match. Rock's matches at this point were still very boring. Let's see. Ref is tending Hunter on the floor. China hits a DDT. Rock kicks out of that. They did sleepers for a while. I was falling asleep. And finally, China distracts the ref so Rock can hit a low blow and a fisherman suplex for the win. What geeks DX were here?
And Ross made sure to note 50-50 booking since Hunter beat Rock a couple of weeks ago.
That's true. That's true.
It's already starting.
So DX and the Nation came out to have a brawl. So the semifinals of the pay-per-view are Ken Shamrock versus Jeff Jarrett and The Rock versus Dan Severn.
The Rock versus Dan Severn.
That doesn't sound good.
Can you put that one together? I know Severn's available.
He was around for a long time. Did he ever fit in?
No.
I don't think he ever did.
No.
Let's see. Oh, they were the announcers are teasing a Shamrock Severn final because of the UFC rivalry. Then Rock outright says, or Lawler outright says, no, Rock will be in the final somehow. Kane is still beside himself backstage. Mankind promises that Uncle Paul will be all right. Again, I felt so bad for Kane. Mankind goes out for a promo. I like they lowered the sell just for this promo. He said he knew sometimes in wrestling there were great rivals who, years after their battles, would find a common respect and they'd tell stories about the old times. And he hoped someday he'd be there with Undertaker. But no more. Now Taker had attacked Uncle Paul, And now Mankind's goal was to survive long enough to urinate on the Undertaker's grave. Taker had cowardly attacked a non-wrestler. He pointed out, we could have you put behind bars, but I want you behind these bars. He promised a surprise for everyone at the Hell in a Cell match. Boy, did he deliver.
You know, all of these indie geeks that came up thinking that they were fat and they could get hit with shit and fall off things so they could be Mick Foley. Did none of them realize what a great worker and an absolutely unbelievable promo this guy was? This promo was awesome. God, this promo was good. And then they sent him out there with Billy Gunn to just have a competitive match.
Yes.
I was so mad. Like, you can't just beat Billy Gunn. I mean, Kane went out there and he squashed Road Dogg. Mm-hmm. And Mankind is facing Undertaker in a Hell in a Cell match.
Those are the two main events.
Which you already know, like, he's going to be at a disadvantage. Like, why can't you have him just destroy Billy Gunn? I was furious. You hear me?
At least he won clean with a mandible claw.
He did win clean with the mandible claw. But he sold for rockabilly.
That happened.
It's ridiculous.
So Mankind gets the win, scurries to the back to make sure Kane is okay, but Kane is nowhere to be seen. Sable comes out to introduce Steve Austin. Austin takes the mic and says, look, I know you're out here for no reason. Here is how to do a middle finger. Go show this to Vince McMahon. And Sable laughed and left.
How disrespectful.
He actually took her hand and formed it into the middle finger.
And then she smiled broadly.
Of course. So he dares anyone to come fight. He's checking if there's anyone under the ring. Oh, I forgot to mention, this is actually important. In Kane's opening promo, either he or Vince issued a challenge to Austin for a first blood match. First one to bleed loses.
By the way, somebody pointed this out to me. Steve Austin, the only one that can send Sable out of the ring and not get booed.
That's a good point.
That is true.
Yeah. So Austin accepts Kane's challenge for a first blood match, says, I'm not afraid to bleed, but with this title on the line, your ass is mine. If you want to set yourself on fire, I'll bring the marshmallows, the hot dogs, and the beer. So Kane comes out, he raises his arms, but instead of fire, blood drops from the ceiling and douses Austin.
You know what's funny is when you hear there's going to be a first blood match. It sounds so shocking and devastating, and then you realize there's so much blood on these fucking shows. Like,
we saw someone in Owen.
When someone bleeds on Sunday, the match is over.
Yeah.
It's kind of lame, actually. Oh, well.
The only way to win is via blood stoppage, yes. So then Kane says something in his voice box that I could not understand, but Ross translated. He said the blood on Austin on Sunday would be for real. And that was that. So, hey, you know what? They pushed the two biggest matches at the King of the Ring and the tournament, so I can't complain about this show.
All right, let's play a quick...
WWF Monday Night Raw, June 29th, 1989, from Cleveland, Ohio, in the Gund Arena.
Wow, that's more than Vinny ever gives us.
Well, I also didn't write down the episode number, so there you go.
Ooh.
Everybody's favorite. We have a red carpet in the ring. We have a nice platform with a pedestal on it. World Championship title belt under glass. Gerald Briscoe, Vince McMahon, and Sergeant Slaughter in the ring, grinning ear to ear. Vince grabs a mic. He says, we're here to crown a new champion. Couldn't be happier that Austin had lost the title at King of the Ring. We then get Kane getting led to the ring by Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer goes on and on and on.
Oh, man, don't even. Paul cut the greatest promo of the 90s here. Talked about how wonderful this was for his son. His son used to sit there on the couch and he would watch WWE superstars. And he would say, Daddy, I wish I could grow up and be just like The Undertaker. But Paul told him, you could be better than The Undertaker. And little Kane, because of his deformities and that he was burnt to a crisp, was ridiculed on the playground and belittled by all of his friends. Mm-hmm. Something I know a lot about in my life. And Paul said, now, for the first time in his life, Kane is no longer in The Undertaker's shadow. The Undertaker is standing in the shadow of his little brother. It was a goddamn masterpiece, this was.
As I said, he went on and on and on.
It was beautiful. It was the best thing on this show. You know what the best thing on this show was? The best thing on the show was Paul Bearer.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Beginning to end, as we will get to. I'm so sad that Paul Bearer is no longer with us. Paul, If you go back in the archives, I know the search is not working right now, but when it is, we got a bunch of shows that we did with Paul Bearer. He was so great. He was so nice. And God, do I have a million questions for him now that I can never ask. It's really sad. This really was awesome.
Anyway, Vince has a belt in his hands. He goes to put the title on around Kane's waist, and then the glass breaks. Out comes Stone Cold Steve Austin. He grabs a white mic away from Commissioner Slaughter. And, of course, he wants a rematch with Kane tonight. Austin wants McMahon to show him some guts and grant him the title match, but McMahon says Austin can have his rematch if Paul Bearer agrees to it.
This is so much better than Raw nowadays, where they do something and somebody the Authority hates wins a title, and then like the next night on Raw, it's just announced that that person's getting a rematch. And it makes no sense. It's just lazy booking. It's just, they put it together, they don't even try to explain it. Here, this man that Vince McMahon hated, Steve Austin, has lost the title. And Vince is so pleased. And Steve Austin wants a championship match. Why in the world would Vince grant this guy a title match? Well, he decides, I'm going to pass the buck to Paul Bearer. Because there's no way Paul Bearer is going to say that Steve Austin could get a championship match. And of course, Paul Bearer is afraid, and so he wants to pass the buck to Kane, because he knows there's no way Kane's going to say yes to Steve Austin. But then Steve Austin cuts such a great promo, written by Granny, guilting Kane.
Guilting, yes.
He literally guilted him into giving him the rematch. He said, "You didn't win this belt last night. It was the Undertaker who hit me with a chair. The Undertaker busted me open. And thus, he won the title and gave it to you. And if you don't give me this rematch, you'll have to go through your whole life knowing, or not knowing, that you could have beaten me. So I think that you need to defend the title against me tonight, and then you'll know for sure." And he spoke to this big red bastard, as he's called, and Kane nodded his head yes. This segment was unbelievable. It was awesome.
So they signed the match for later on tonight.
I couldn't have booked it better myself.
We then get the debuting Steven Regal.
We should add, by the way, that Paul and Vince were livid that Kane had accepted the challenge. They thought there was no way. And they were so just beat red. Paul Bearer was furious, but confused, and also angry and sad all at the same time. Vince is shoving Kane like an absolute idiot. It was the best. This segment was the best.
You know when you try to move on and then Dave cuts you off and goes back?
Never happens.
Okay.
I got so much to say.
Apparently.
I can't let you skip anything. Like how great Paul and Vince were.
Fair enough. Then get the debuting Steven Regal and his opponent, Puke.
Droz.
Darren Drozdov.
I got nothing to say, so go for it.
Well, Sable comes out to the ring to introduce Mr. Regal.
In the same outfit. I guess I do have something to say.
No. It was a different outfit. This one was cut down the front, as the old catsuit covered up everything and was just tight. This one had mounds and mounds of cleavage.
I'm going to need to go back and investigate. I'm pretty sure it was the same outfit.
I'm positive it wasn't.
Didn't wash her clothes.
I don't think that happened.
If only there'd been eBay.
I don't think you're allowed to sell the... Anyway. Anyway.
What are you talking about? Of course you can.
You can't use used
You can sell used clothing.
Anyway.
You need to talk to Ed.
Okay. Getting back on track here. She came out to introduce Regal at the request of Mr. McMahon. Sable then joined Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler at the commentator's booth. Ross and Lawler had millions of questions for her pertaining to how she got back in the WWE. And she is tight-lipped and won't say a thing.
Excuse me, tight-lipped?
You heard me. I think that's how she got her job back.
I know that she didn't say anything. That I can confirm.
Right. So as stated, Regal in his first match gets Droz. Pretty boring match. Regal took about 85% of the match. I wrote that Regal made Droz look more silly than he made Goldberg look. Crowd could not care less. Of course, you got Regal In his debut, you got Sable on commentary. You got two things going on at once. I'm convinced Vince Russo has ADD.
I can't believe you're still talking about this match.
Butterfly suplex led to the Regal stretch. And for the tap out in 4 minutes and 42 seconds.
Thank you. There's nothing to say except in his debut, this was his match.
Sad.
Sad is right.
We then had Michael Cole. He introduced the winner of the 1998 King of the Ring tournament, Ken Shamrock.
You know what's weird about 1998 is this is the year, like everybody always says, man, Brian's memory's terrible. He must have suffered so many concussions in wrestling.
Well,
no, I never suffered any concussions in wrestling. And listen, nobody else can remember anything past 98 either. I mean, seriously, Ken Shamrock was a 98 King of the Ring. Who was the 99 King of the Ring?
I'll just throw it out here, Triple H.
You don't know. Who was a 2000 King of the Ring?
I don't know.
But everybody knew everything up until 98. Like, let me tell you something. Up until 98, I could tell you every single WWF champion dating back to the very beginning. But the beginning of the end was actually, this is a very historic show. It was this show. When Austin lost to Kane and then immediately won it back from Kane. Like, where the hell does it go from here? I don't remember. I don't think anyone else does either.
No, it's completely hot-shotted and everything just blurred together. After
Yeah, the 9 million title changes. Like, people won things, but it didn't matter. Like, Ken Shamrock's the King of the Ring. He doesn't even come out in a crown.
No.
Like, who remembered this? Like, we'll get to it. There's so much stuff on the show that I just don't remember because it's absolutely meaningless.
It's fair. Anyway, Ken Shamrock comes out. He said it was good to be king. He starts to put over the Rock, but then Owen Hart comes out and he wants to fight him. Because you see, Shamrock broke Owen's ankle.
Well, Owen was also known that he was also a king and a better king.
That's true. Shamrock wants revenge and accepts the challenge for tonight, but then Triple H appears and says he wants to find out who the King of Kings is because he is also a former King of the Ring winner. So a triple threat match is made for later on tonight.
God, Shamrock took forever just to say yes. Like, Hunter challenged him to a three-way. All he had to say was yes.
Right.
Talk for 10 minutes.
Well, it's a 2-hour show, Brian.
Dude.
Then we get history.
Can you believe they didn't even advertise this a week in advance? Like, they came on TV and they said, we're about to have this thing called Brawl for All. The most punches in a round. Well, first off, it's 3 one-minute rounds. Whoever throws the most punches,
That connects.
that person gets 5 points. Every takedown is worth 5 points. A knockdown is worth 10 points. And if you knock the guy out, predictably, you win.
Oh,
Yes. With Danny Hodge as a referee. They just start
yeah.
There's no, hey, we decided that we're going to do this. Or, hey,
Sure.
we asked everybody in the locker room who wanted to participate in this thing. Nothing like that. They just started. They dimmed the lights. They set it up like a boxing ring.
So the first match was Mark Mero against Steve Blackman. They ring the bell, and literally the crowd is booing
It was 10 seconds.
at least 10 seconds. From the very start, there is a "We Want Wrestling" chant that is going on in the crowd. Second round, Blackman actually starts to take Mero down. It goes all 3 rounds. Storyline, basically, that a good wrestler can beat a good boxer any day, I guess.
The storyline was they killed the business tonight.
It comes down to a decision. Steve Blackman wins all 3 rounds and advances in the Brawl for All tournament. This was crap.
Dude. As much as we said that Mark Mero's career was ended by getting powerbombed by Sable, like, this was worse. This guy had a boxing gimmick, and he was losing the stand-up to Steve Blackman. His gimmick is he's a wrestler who has 0 takedown defense whatsoever.
Yes.
He just got taken down repeatedly. He had nothing in this fight. It was sad. That's what this was. Depressing.
Then get Kevin Kelly interviews Kane. Kane uses the voice box gimmick. Says he can beat Stone Cold Steve Austin again because he's a braver champion than the Undertaker ever was. As Kane rushes away, Paul Bearer goes after him, leaving an awkward moment between Kevin Kelly and Mankind, who is at the live Raw the day after he went through the table at ringside off the top of the Hell in the Cell and crashed through the cage onto the WWF mats.
Even actually, I can't say WCW would do that because if you watched all the clips, he came back in the main event as well.
Yeah.
Fine.
On the night before.
Yeah, this was ridiculous. He should have been out of action for a month.
At least. And then they have a shot of Taker strolling into the building about 30 minutes after.
We think. A man stormed into the building and nobody could recognize him.
It's true.
He was limping, so I knew it was probably the Undertaker.
And I didn't figure Undertaker as a gold chain guy. But apparently the gold chain is what the Undertaker wears.
Well, I don't know.
We then get Val Venis versus Dick Togo. Val does his shtick. He says, this is the home of the Cleveland Indians. And he tells the ladies, if you want to get to first base with the big Valboski, you got to choke up on the bat and swing for those long balls.
Craig loves Val Venis.
Actually, you know what? That sounded like third base to me, not first base.
Let's talk about Goldust doing commentary as a born-again Christian.
Another thing, Goldust doing commentary as a born-again Christian as the porn star is in the ring.
Yeah, that's the whole point. His whole deal was he does not like Val Venis because he lives a life of sin. And so he is commanding Val Venis to repent. Otherwise, he's going to kick his ass.
The only thing this has accomplished is it made wrestling fans hate Christian folks.
He was going to go on a crusade.
Anyway. Okay, so pretty much a squash match. Togo got a nice flurry of offense in. Dick Togo is awesome, but he was out here to lose. Venis catches him off the top rope with a power slam, hits Dick with a butterfly suplex, big slam, and then money shot for a win. This one about 3 minutes.
Lawler was so upset that it was Val Venis versus Dick Togo. Mm-hmm. And, quote, I had a ton of material, but Dustin killed it with his godly gimmick.
After the match, Val Venis goes out and flirts with Yamaguchi-san.
It's Yamaguchi-san.
And I forgot about his hot wife.
You did? I didn't forget about her.
She was sitting at ringside.
That's one thing I remember.
She's your kind of girl.
Well, there are many that are, but among them.
She wasn't blonde or anything, but you know what I mean.
She was hot, yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
I type, thank you.
Anyway, Venis ends up getting slapped by her husband, and then he wipes out Kai and Tai with a steel chair.
Yeah, he kills every one of them with a chair shot right to the head. Because nobody cared about anybody during the Monday Night Wars. Do you know that when Steve Austin came out at the beginning of the show, and he had a gigantic, like his arm was taped up from shoulder to wrist?
Right.
Massive staph infection.
Yep.
Just taped that dude up, got him out of the hospital, and threw him out there to do his matches. This is crazy.
There's a lawsuit there somewhere. Edge is shown in the balcony. Nothing ever came of that. Michael Cole attempts to interview Stone Cold, but Stone Cold throws him out of his dressing room. And that was that. We then get the King of Kings triple threat match with Ken Shamrock versus Owen, Hart versus Triple H.
Can you imagine they just did this? Like, it's three major King of the Ring winners, and they just threw a match together on television for free with like 5 minutes build.
Mm-hmm.
And this was amazing to watch. First off, Hunter's loudly calling spots for all three guys.
Mostly Shamrock.
Yeah. And this was so primitive. Like, if you watch three ways today, they're very slick. They got a very patterned formula. Back then, it was three dudes trying to have a singles match with an extra guy in it. And it was just a mess.
And Shamrock didn't realize the whole gimmick of a triple threat match, so he was, well, basically in the way a lot. Anyway, Triple H hits Shamrock with a facebuster, goes for the pedigree, but Owen stops him with a spin wheel kick, hits the enziguri of death, sends Owen to the floor, and sends Helmsley to the floor. As Owen comes off the top rope, Chyna pulls the top rope down and Owen tumbles outside. Owen and Chyna then argue on the floor. The ref steps between them to separate them. Shamrock attacks Owen from behind, but meanwhile, out comes The Rock to hit Triple H with the IC title. Triple H is out in the middle of the ring. Owen gets slingshotted off the apron and into the guardrail, allowing Shamrock to walk over and cover Helmsley for the win.
Got that, everybody?
It was very convoluted and silly.
It was a clusterfuck, is what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Do you realize, Craig, that somebody put up a video of a match I had at the Temple Theater where you did commentary?
Oh, yeah.
And you used a very bad word.
I did.
You did. I chopped this guy. I don't even remember who he was. I have no memory of this match or the guy. I chopped him, and you called it a bitch slap. Yep. You sure did.
Somebody else posted a video of Vinny
yeah,
in a three-way. And
didn't watch that one. Was it better than this three-way?
No.
No. It was horrible.
It was a guy called Moose.
I remember Moose.
Yeah.
Who was the other guy?
I don't remember.
You?
No.
Oh.
I never wrestled Vinny, remember?
Lucky you. Owen put him in the worst figure four on the ring post of all time afterwards.
Yep.
An embarrassment to the Hart family.
Undertaker comes out to make a confession. Michael Cole meets him in the ring. He asks why he got involved in the match with Stone Cold and Kane last night at the King of the Ring. Taker said he got involved with the match because he wasn't going to let his little brother set himself on fire. Cole asked Taker about...
Why is that so funny?
How long have they been feuding? They've broken up and gotten together how many times? This all could have been stopped right here.
Well, you know, he doesn't want the guy to light himself on fire. But he does admit we may kill each other someday. Apparently he's just not a fan of suicide.
Well, who is, Brian?
I don't know.
Cole asked...
But my point is he's a fan of homicide, but not suicide.
I see. Okay. Cole asked Taker about costing Austin the title. Undertaker responds that he did what he had to do. And while Mr. McMahon has to get involved and tell us that Undertaker did what he did for Kane because he thinks he can beat Kane for the title.
Yes, he believes he can beat his brother, but he doesn't think he can beat Austin.
Thank you.
He must not interfere or else.
McMahon calls Taker the most evil individual the devil has ever placed on this earth. And he warns Taker not to interfere in the match later on tonight. Then get clips of Mankind actually crashing through the Spanish announce table at the King of the Ring. And then we get our second Brawl for All. Bradshaw versus the returning from a broken neck Mark Canterbury.
No, he's been back. He was Southern Justice.
I understand,
and they
Brian.
just randomly call him Mark Canterbury, which the announcers were ridiculing.
And how many months earlier did he break his neck?
Well, he came back too early.
Right.
For a real fight.
And now he's going into a real fight.
Yes, this essentially ended his career. It did. Until about 2008, when he got signed to WWE Developmental in a story I still can't believe, but it's true. Yeah, he went in there with Bradshaw. They had the most god-awful stand-up fight you ever saw that actually involved action. Like, I've seen worse in UFC where the guys just stand there and do nothing.
Sure.
That Holly Holm fight was much worse than this. But they're just swinging. And, like, I got to say one thing about Brawl for All. I got one compliment about Brawl for All.
Okay.
That minute flies by.
It's true.
Like, before you know that minute's over, and it's like, whoa, that was fast. Bradshaw is so unbelievably blown up at the end of this 1 minute. Like, who the fuck's idea was this? They exposed their athletes as, I don't want to call them non-athletes, but it just showed you how fake wrestling is. Like, in a real fight, these guys can't do anything to each other.
Yeah.
And in a real fight, within a minute, they can barely breathe. So what's going on in a normal match where they're out there for 15 minutes? Mm-hmm. Well, it makes you think that maybe it's not on the level. Not that we didn't know that.
Trying to tell me this wrestling thing isn't on the up and up?
So then Bradshaw rocks him in the second round. Now he's totally blown up in the third. And Canterbury got 2 takedowns in the third round. And by my calculations, okay, And by the way, Jerry Lawler, the pro wrestler, wanted them to stop trying to wrestle and hit each other more. I did like that. He's from Memphis.
Yeah.
So Bradshaw was declared the winner.
But
By my calculations, Bradshaw got 5 points for the first round.
correct.
He got 5 points for the second round.
Correct.
Canterbury got 2 takedowns in the third. So that would have meant it was a tie.
Right.
But Bradshaw threw more punches
Oh, jeez.
than Canterbury in the third round. And so that was a tiebreaker.
That's stupid.
But that's what I got out of it.
Okay.
Because I can't think of any other reason.
I called this a split decision. Of course, I watch
It's
UFC.
not a split decision, you jackass. There's only one referee or one judge.
I understand.
That doesn't make any sense.
But this judge sitting at home watching this was a split decision.
How can you be a split decision? You're one guy.
Exactly.
Half of you thought one guy won and half of you thought the other guy
Well,
won.
the other guy on TV thought one thing, I thought another thing. That's two. That's 1 against 1.
All I know
Split.
is this sucked. It sucked. Do you hear me?
Yeah. This we're in agreement on.
Man, every time Bradshaw bullies someone, they should just bring up Brawl for All. That'll end that. Who are you to talk? Look at that fucking horrible fight you had with Mark Canterbury. That was the worst performance I ever saw in a fight.
Touche, Brian. Touche.
Even Punk had some technique.
Okay. Kevin Kelly promised that he was going to ask The Undertaker if he planned on heeding Vince McMahon's warning when they come back from break. They come back from break, and the LOD 2000 is at ringside. Sunny is not with them.
She's in counseling or something.
I read that as well. Ross said she is under the weather.
Well, true.
I would imagine she's out of the weather in any home. Anyway, they bring back Paul Ellering as their manager.
God. For those of you that forgot that Russo was around, just slapped in the face in this segment.
Apparently, he's going to breathe new life into this duo again, is what Ross said. Disciples of Apocalypse appear on their bikes. Ellering says he's not actually here to manage the DO. He's actually here to manage the DOA now. Swerved.
I have no memory of this. Apparently, it lasted all of 1998. Paul Ellering with DOA. No memory. And apparently, like, Ellering thought it sucked, and Animal thought it sucked, and Ellering had to cut these promos on Legion of Doom that he didn't want to cut because he thought it sucked. And it just all sucked. But you know what? It was a swerve. And then later, they just put them all back together again.
So 8-Ball and Skull work over LOD, and Ellering smacks around the LOD with his Wall Street Journal, and I'm not telling you he rolled it up and hit them with it. He ripped out pages and flung them on them. It was stupid.
Oh my God. This was terrible.
I wrote here, Hawk and Animal just can't catch a break.
No, they cannot. It's terrible. They were better off when he had that dummy and he was their manager.
Explain.
Well, I mean, it's
dummy?
better than this.
You talking about Sonny or?
No, when Paul Ellering had that goddamn mannequin. What was the dummy that he had? Remember he managed Legion of Doom and he had a dummy? Oh, dude, come on. Paul Ellering and the dummy. He had like a ventriloquist dummy. Dude. Oh, my God.
Yeah, this is a new one to me. I'm sorry. Anyway, we get Kevin Kelly's asking The Undertaker if he plans on heeding Vince McMahon's warning. Taker says,
Rocco!
well, obviously it's Rocco.
Remember the Legion of Doom and Paul Ellering and Rocco? You don't remember this?
What year was this?
Like 92 or something like that.
92?
Yeah.
See, I was chasing girls then.
Oh, get out of here, you idiot.
I'm not lying. I've quit watching wrestling for a long time because I discovered drinking, drugs, and girls.
Get out of here. Let me find it here. World Wrestling Federation, 90 through 92. So let's see here. They were the Legion of Doom. They were referred to as the Legion of Dummies. And here we go. LOD would return a short time later. This was 92, as I noted, with their original manager, Paul Ellering, at WrestleMania 8. You didn't watch WrestleMania 8?
I'm sure I
very
watched
skeptical. The team later incorporated a ventriloquist dummy called Rocco, originally introduced as Freckles in front of a live crowd at a WWE TV taping.
Oh, jeez.
The segment bombed so badly it never aired. But they kept doing it, which served as their inspiration. But this gimmick was short-lived. Hegstrand left the company in disgust with the Rocco gimmick immediately after SummerSlam 92.
And then he came back again and again.
Yep. Rocco.
Well, I have to go home and do some homework. Anyway, Kevin Kelly asked Undertaker if he planned on heeding Vince McMahon's warning. Taker said nobody tells the Undertaker what to do. This led to our main event. The WWF champion, Kane, versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. As stated, Austin came to the ring with his elbow heavily bandaged. Brawl from the start, beating each other in the corner. Austin goes for a stunner early. Kane pushes him off, flips him out to the floor to regroup with Undertaker.
Paul grabs his shoe and waffles Steve Austin in the head. And the highlight of the night.
Yeah. Trying to bust him open, I guess.
I laughed so hard. And I remembered vividly, so I must have rewound it like 50 times.
Austin hits a Thez press, slams Kane's knee into the ring post. Kane is able to kick Austin outside, tossed Austin into the steps, dropped him onto the guardrail, back in the ring. Kane sends Austin in the corner, chest first, rips at his forehead. Paul Bearer hits him with a shoe right here. Back at it again. Kane applies a chin lock. The Undertaker makes his way down to ringside, finally. Austin makes a brief comeback. Kane hits a choke slam. Kane sets him up for the tombstone, but Austin rolls off his back, sends Kane to the ropes, and tries to boot him, but Austin avoids the kick and finally connects with a Stone Cold Stunner. And we have a new champion, and the pop was unreal.
Amazing. You give the people something that they want, and they like it.
Undertaker slides into the ring. Paul Bearer catches his attention for a brief second. He turns around, and boom, Stone Cold hits him with a Stone Cold Stunner. Austin walks off, sends the crowd home happy. Great way to end the show.
You know what? The extra attitude? Well, before we get to the extra attitude.
I did, but it was dumb.
Paul's freaking out for the 3 count outside was the most amazing thing I ever saw. Go back and watch this match and watch Paul facing the hard camera. The reaction is a ref counts 1, 2, 3. It's an eternity to Paul Bearer.
Yeah.
It's 1,000 years as that referee is counting 3.
He lost 10 years of his life each slap of the mat.
It was so wonderful. And then at the end when Taker and Kane did the simultaneous zombie sit-up, it's like you had to know that those men as a team was going to be money someday.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing better than an old school brother storyline.
Sure.
Nothing works better than that. Just the old basic stories from 1,000 years ago are the best ones. And these two brothers who hate each other, but someday they'll remember their brothers. And they'll get together and wreak havoc. It's going to be great. And yes, extra attitude was Taker and Kane brawled and Taker chokeslammed him. And he made sure to punch Paul for good measure. I loved it.
Because why not?
Yeah. Excellent show.
I thought so.
The show was awesome.
Besides the Brawl for All and the...
No, even that was great. It was so horrible, but it was just... It helped make the show. Dude, you watch this show...
I'm skeptical, Brian.
Let me tell you something. There was a match on this show. Mm-hmm. It was actually the 3-way.
Right.
Just, like I said, a huge clusterfuck. And in the middle of this match, like... They're just having a clusterfuck of a match. Hunter is screaming spots. Like, he screams, "Sharpshooter!" Like, as loud as he can, while he's all the way across the ring, so the other guys can do the goddamn
taking
move.
lessons from Michaels.
So, in the middle of this match, this crazy match, everyone just starts buzzing, and they're looking over at something. I don't know if it was a fight or what.
Yeah.
It's just totally out of control. And then you randomly hear the bell ring. Like, the bell just rang.
I have a theory.
And Jim Ross is like, I don't know what's going on here.
I have a theory. I think a fan jumped the guardrail and rang the bell.
It may have. All I know is it was the Wild West, and it was exciting from start to finish, and the Brawl for All helped.
Okay. I was not a fan of the Brawl for All.
Listen, I didn't book it. I can just sit here and watch it and go, God damn, what a terrible idea. I'm going to revel in it.
Brian, I did not blame you for the show or these matches.
It was awesome. This whole show was just amazing.
Okay.
It's so stupid. I love it. The Brawl for All is great.
Okay, well, you got it.
It's a disaster.
You get it for the next month, I think.
You know what it is? It is a disaster.
Yeah.
There's nothing like a disaster. There's nothing like a train wreck, and that's Brawl for All. And you know what's the best thing about it? They kept going.
Mm-hmm.
They could have ended it right here and pretended like it never happened. But no, they were like, God damn, we got to just keep it up. And they just kept going.
That Vince McMahon is a stubborn old man.
Yeah. Not anymore. Sure was then.
Roman Reigns.
Well, it's one example, but he changed his mind about everything else. Listen, it's easy to be stubborn when you have no other options.
That's a great point, actually. I will give you that one, Mr. Alvarez.
Thank you.
Touche.